It was September 23rd, 2029. I had just finished a long weekend of part-time work in Xingqing. I felt pretty good. I'd managed to earn $300 moving bricks for 2 days. If I was careful, that was enough to cover my living expenses for the entire week. When I walked back into my dorm room at the university, I found my 2 roommates glued to their phones. They were total shut-ins. "Yang Bin, you're finally back." Lu Bo shouted like I was his savior. "Get online quick. Wen Liang is killing me. I can't carry this guy anymore." "Who's carrying who?" Wen Liang snapped back. "Look at your own score. You're 1-8. How can you say you're carrying me?" "That's because of you. Every time I try to gank, you stay back to farm 2 measly minions." The minions were under the tower. I had to take them. I just shook my head and laughed. "All right, shut up. You're both terrible. Don't blame each other." I looked around the room. "Is Chunhao not back yet?" "Nope," Wen Liang said. "He's out on a date. He probably won't even come back tonight." I sighed. "You 2 are juniors, and you're still single. Don't you ever think about going out to find a girlfriend instead of rotting in here? Games are way more fun than girls," Lu Bo muttered. "Besides, look at you. You don't have one either." "I'm broke," I said flatly. "The money I make barely keeps me fed. Adding another mouth to feed would mean I'd be eating dirt for dinner." "With your looks? You don't need money," Wen Liang joked. "There are plenty of rich girls at this school. Just pick one. It's better than moving bricks." "My teeth are too strong for that," I joked back. "I can't handle soft rice." I pulled out my phone and tried calling Chen Hao, but it went straight to voicemail. I frowned. That kid usually kept his phone charged, especially on a date. I didn't think much of it at the time. I played a few rounds with the guys, carried them to a couple of wins, and then hit the shower. My body was aching from the weekend labor. I needed sleep. Late that night, the dorm was silent. Everyone was out cold. Suddenly, a loud, obnoxious ringtone blasted through the room. I jumped, nearly heart-attacked, and scrambled to cover my phone. It was Chun Hao. "How?" I whispered, trying not to wake the others. "Where the hell are you? I've been looking for you all day." There was a long silence on the other end. Then, a shaky voice came through. "Bin, can you come have a drink with me?" "It's the middle of the night," I hissed. "We have class tomorrow." "What's wrong with you?" I paused, sensing something was off. "Where are you?" "The roof." My heart dropped. I was wide awake in a second. "Don't do anything stupid." "I'm coming." I threw on my clothes and sprinted out of the room. Chen Hao and I had been best friends since middle school. We were close enough to share clothes. Hearing him at the rooftop at this hour terrified me. The rooftop door was usually locked, but in a college dorm, there are always a dozen spare keys floating around. Someone had already picked the lock. When I burst through the door, I saw him. He was sitting on the concrete, looking like a total wreck, surrounded by a pile of beer cans. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "You idiot," I panted, half angry and half relieved. "I thought you were going to jump." Chen Hao looked up. He saw the anger in my face, but he also saw the worry. "Sorry, Bin. Didn't mean to scare you." I sat down next to him and cracked open one of his beers. "Talk to me. What happened?" He took a massive gulp of beer, his face twisting in pain. "We broke up. 3 years. All gone because of reality." I wasn't surprised. I knew how deep he was into that girl. In a relationship, the one who loves more always loses the hardest. I patted his shoulder. "Look, women are everywhere. You're a good-looking guy. You'll find someone else." "But I loved her," he whimpered. "Get a grip. Does love put food on the table?" "When I look at her, I don't feel hungry," he mumbled. "Well, she still cheated on you, didn't she?" He froze. "How did you know?" "I know you. You wouldn't have broken up with her unless she did something that bad. So tell me, who was it? Are you trying to help or just rub salt in the wound?" he asked, looking miserable. "I want to know which bastard had the guts to do that to my brother," I said firmly. "I'll get him back for you." His eyes softened with gratitude. "It was Wang Yuehao. That rich kid. He used his family's money to get to Shirya, and she actually went for it." "Him?" I nodded. "Don't worry. I'll break his legs for you." "No, Bin. That's illegal. It's not worth it." "Fine," I shrugged. "Then I'll go sleep with his girl." "But he's with Shirya now." Chen Hao's eyes went wide. "Are you going after her?" "Relax. That guy has a dozen girls on the hook. Shirya isn't even top of the list." "Why would she choose someone like him over me?" he groaned. "Because he has money." "You really are just rubbing salt in the wound." he cried out, sounding defeated. I'm telling you she wasn't worth it, I said, putting a hand on his shoulder. You're a man. Stand up. Don't lose yourself over one girl. Tonight, we drink. Tomorrow, we start over. He nodded slowly. But we have class in the morning. Forget class. My brother is more important. Bin, you're the best. Shut up. Don't get mushy. Just close the door so a teacher doesn't catch us. The night was quiet. The moonlight was dim, but the stars were incredibly bright, brighter than I had ever seen them. We laid back on the rooftop, surrounded by empty cans, staring at the sky. Hey, Bin. Chun-Hao slurred, pointing upward. Does the Big Dipper look different to you? Like there are 9 stars instead of 7? I chuckled. You're wasted. It's the Big Dipper 7 stars, not 9. Oh yeah? I must be drunk. Wait, no? Look. 1, 2, 3, 8, 9. There really are 9. Haha. I guess we're both drunk then. I squinted at the sky. Everything felt blurry and strange. Is it just me, or is the North Star falling? I see it too, he whispered. A streak of light was cutting through the atmosphere, dragging a long, brilliant tail behind it. It was magnificent. It was the last thing I remember before the world changed forever. It looks even better than a meteor shower, I muttered, my eyes fixed on the sky. Wait, there's another one. Chun-Hao slurred next to me. The North Star is back. But look, it's red. I squinted. He was right. A deep, crimson glow pulsed where the North Star should be. I laughed, the alcohol making everything feel floaty and unreal. Man, I'm wasted. I can't take any more. I'm crashing. Everything will be better tomorrow, Chun-Hao said. He didn't even wait for a response before his head hit the concrete, and he drifted off. I stayed awake a moment longer, staring at that blood-red star with a strange sense of curiosity. Eventually, the exhaustion won. My eyes slipped shut, and I fell into a heavy, drunken sleep. As we slept, the world broke. It was as if some invisible seal had been shattered. A surge of energy, spiritual chi, erupted across the planet. It moved fast, blanketing every corner of the globe. But this energy wasn't pure. It carried the stench of decay. It seeped into every living thing. For some, nothing changed. But for the majority, their bodies began to warp. Their eyes turned a sickening blood red. Their skin began to rot while they were still standing. Their consciousness was snuffed out, replaced by a primal, hollow hunger. They became walking corpses. Only a tiny fraction of people gained something else, special abilities. Most of them were the ones who had been touched by the light of that crimson star. September 24th, 2029. Early morning. Help. Someone help. There's a monster. The screams ripped through the morning silence. I bolted upright, my head throbbing with a brutal hangover. The air was filled with desperate shrieks and the sound of things breaking. Why is it so loud? I groaned, rubbing my temples. I stumbled toward the edge of the rooftop and looked down. My heart stopped. My skin crawled. The courtyard in front of the dorms was a slaughterhouse. Bodies, or what was left of them, were scattered everywhere. The ground was stained a dark, wet crimson. Figures covered in blood were hunched over, clutching severed limbs and tearing into them with their teeth. I could see the rot on their skin and the mindless red glow in their eyes. I scrambled back, my breath hitching in my throat. Even with my steady nerves, I was shaking. I'm dreaming, I whispered. I have to be dreaming. I squeezed my eyes shut and pinched my thigh as hard as I could. Ow. What the hell, Bin? Why did you pinch me? Chun-Hao yelled, waking up with a look of pure betrayal. It hurts, I asked, my voice trembling. Of course it hurts. Try it yourself. It wasn't a dream. I forced myself to look over the edge one more time. The hellish scene below hadn't changed. It was a nightmare made real. I backed away and leaned against the wall, gasping for air. What's wrong with you? Chun-Hao asked, looking confused. See for yourself, I said weakly. He shook his head, muttering about me being mysterious, and walked to the edge. He took one look and collapsed. He hit the ground hard, his face turning as white as a sheet. A second later, he was doubled over, retching onto the rooftop. I didn't wait for him to recover. I pulled out my phone and dialed the police. Busy. I tried again. Nothing. I tried 10 more times, but the lines were dead. I opened social media. My stomach dropped. The feed was exploding with SOS posts. I clicked on the videos. They were all the same. People's friends and family members had turned into monsters overnight, biting anyone they could reach. It was happening everywhere. The entire world was falling apart. The comments sections were in a frenzy. Everyone was calling it the apocalypse. They were calling them zombies. It looked exactly like a horror movie, and the fact that there was no official government response only made it more terrifying. I scrolled through photos taken from windows and hidden corners. The images were grainy, but the horror was clear. My heart sank. This was real. The world we knew was gone. Chun Hao finally finished throwing up. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with terror. Ben, what is this? Is it the end of the world? I took a deep breath. Yeah, it's the apocalypse. The apocalypse? He looked like he couldn't process the words. No way. Look at the news. He checked his phone, and his face went from pale to ghostly. What do we do? Ben, what do we do? First, we barricade that door, I said. My survival instincts were kicking in. I'd been taking care of myself my whole life. I couldn't afford to panic. We can't let those things get up here. We scrambled around the roof and found a long metal ladder left behind by maintenance workers. We hauled it over, wedging one end against the iron door and the other against the raised edge of the roof. It held firm. We were safe for now. Should we just wait for help? Chen Hao asked. No, I said firmly. The internet says the whole world is a mess. The government has its hands full. If we just sit here and wait, we'll starve to death before anyone shows up. Then what? We observe. We watch those things from up here and learn how they move. Check the forums too. See if anyone has figured out how to kill them. The screaming below was dying down. Most of the people who were going to scream were already dead. The zombies seemed to have incredible hearing. Noise was a death sentence. Ben, Chen Hao whispered, looking at the surrounding dorm buildings. How did this happen? Why did everyone else turn into those things, but we're fine? Are we special? I don't know. Maybe we're just lucky. But as I said it, I thought back to the 9 stars and that red glow from the night before. Was that the cause? I looked up at the sky, but it was just a normal morning blue. I shook the thought away. It didn't matter why. It only mattered that we were alive. Do you think the guys in our room, are they okay? Chen Hao asked. He was talking about our other 2 roommates. I don't know, I said. It's just the 2 of them in there, so their odds are better than most. But if one of them turned, the other is done for. Chen Hao went silent. He pulled out his phone, his thumb hovering over a contact. He was about to hit dial when I grabbed his wrist. Are you calling that woman? I asked sharply. I was going to call home. Chen Hao said, his voice trembling. I'm worried about my parents. I just want to know if they're okay. Don't do it, I said firmly. Why not? You saw what's happening down there. It's the same everywhere. If your parents are safe right now, your call could be their death sentence. The ringtone will draw every zombie in the area straight to them. Chen Hao froze. He stared at his phone for a second, then shoved it into his pocket, his face pale. You're right. Thank God you're thinking straight, Ben. If you really have an itch to call someone, I added, trying to lighten the mood, call that ex-girlfriend of yours. See how she's doing. He gave me a bitter smile. Forget it. She screwed me over, but I don't want her dead. Since we broke up, she's a stranger to me. Fair enough, I said. I was just joking. I'm glad you're over her. Don't worry, Ben. I'm not that pathetic. Good. Chen Hao looked at his phone again, frowning. Do you think the signal will last? No, I replied. If those things destroy the base stations, these phones will be nothing but flashlights. If you want to stay entertained, you better download some movies while you still can. Once the power goes out, they'll just be expensive bricks. We stayed on the roof, alternating between watching the chaos below and scrolling for news. Suddenly, Chen Hao gasped, his eyes glued to the screen. Ben, look at this. Someone posted a video of them fighting a zombie. I leaned in. It was a video on Bilibili, filmed from a high-angle window. The quality was decent. In the frame, a tall security guard in uniform was wielding a riot baton. He looked like he hit the gym regularly. Every time his baton connected with the zombie, it made a sickening thud. He was putting his whole weight into it. But the zombie didn't care. It didn't flinch or feel pain. It just kept lunging, teeth snapping at the air. The guard was agile, dodging just in time and swinging again. They danced this lethal dance for 2 minutes. Then, The sound drew two more zombies from around the corner. The guard panicked. He turned to run, but his nerves got the better of him. He tripped. A zombie lunged, sinking its teeth into his ankle. The man screamed. It was a sound I'll never forget. The other two closed in, and the camera jerked away as the person filming clearly lost their nerve. We didn't need to see the rest to know how it ended. Silence fell between us. The reality was worse than we thought. From the video, I said, my voice heavy. The zombies are about as strong as a normal person. But they don't feel pain. They're like unkillable cockroaches. That's the real problem. Bin, are we going to have to fight them? Shinhao asked softly. What do you think? If you want to live, you face them. You kill them, or they eat you. I don't think I can. I sighed and looked at him. To be honest, I'm scared too. We're just students. We've never even been in a real fight, let alone killed anyone. But the world has changed. We don't have a choice. I patted his shoulder. We have a good position here. We have time. We need to use it to kill the fear inside us. If we freeze when we finally face one, we're dead. Shenhao nodded, his face still white. I wasn't doing much better, but I had spent years looking after myself. I knew that if I didn't stay sharp, I was finished. I looked down at the campus again. There were no living people left in sight. Just shadows wandering aimlessly. We couldn't stay in the dorm forever. Our food would run out, and we'd starve. I looked toward the female dorms across the way. I saw movement on one of the balconies. A fight was breaking out. It was too far to see clearly, but someone was definitely taking a stand. I squinted, trying to make out the details. Suddenly, my vision blurred. Then, like a camera lens zooming in, the image of the female dorm expanded. It became crystal clear. I could see the sixth-floor corridor perfectly. For tall girls were out there, armed with stools, drying poles, and bedboards. They were bashing a group of zombies. They looked like athletes, probably from the physical education department. All 4 roommates had survived without turning. That was incredible luck. But they were being reckless. They were trying to push through the hall to reach another room. I shook my head. Their weapons were giving them an edge, but the noise was a dinner bell. Sure enough, doors along the hallway creaked open. More zombies poured out. The girls realized their mistake too late. They turned and sprinted back into their room, slamming the door and locking it just as the horde hit the wood. The door shuddered under the impact. If they didn't barricade it, they were done for. I blinked, and my vision snapped back to normal. My head suddenly throbbed with a dull ache. I stumbled, feeling dizzy. Bin, you okay? Shinhao caught my arm. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog. I pointed at the distant building. How? Can you see what's happening over there? Are you kidding? It's way too far. I can barely see the windows. I went cold. I had slight nearsightedness. I usually couldn't see anything clearly at that distance without glasses. But I had just seen those girls' faces. It wasn't just good vision. It was like I had a telescope built into my eyes. Was this a special ability? I looked at my hands. If it was, why was it only showing up now? Could this have happened last night? Maybe this apocalypse didn't just turn people into monsters. Maybe it gave some of us special abilities. A light flashed in my eyes. I was a man of the 21st century. I'd seen enough movies to know where this was going. In a world where the dead walked, having a superpower felt almost logical. I needed to test it. I turned my focus toward Shenhao. He started to look nervous under my gaze, shifting uncomfortably. He instinctively crossed his arms over his chest, as if he were being stripped naked. Stop hiding, I laughed. It's not like I haven't seen it all before. Internally, I was reeling with excitement. I had wanted to verify my enhanced vision, but I stumbled onto something even better. I could see through things. X-ray vision, the dream of every man, was now mine. Even as a naturally calm person, I could hardly keep my heart from racing. I kept staring at Shenhao, pushing the limit of my vision to see what else I could find. Suddenly, my expression froze. I saw something impossible. Someone's coming, I muttered. What has it been? Shenhao asked, confused. I looked him dead in the eye. How? Try to turn invisible for me. He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Are you sick? If I could turn invisible, why would I bother having a girlfriend? I'd be living in the girls' showers. I'm serious, I said, my voice heavy. Focus. Concentrate your mind. Tell yourself to disappear. He saw I wasn't joking. He sighed, looking skeptical. but he closed his eyes and tried. Slowly, his body began to fade. Within seconds, he vanished completely from the rooftop. "Ben, I think I actually did it." His voice echoed through the air, but the space where he stood was empty. I stared at the spot where he had been. My heart hammered against my ribs. Not only could he turn invisible, but I could see the energy of his ability. I focused my eyes again, straining my new sight, and his silhouette gradually reappeared before me. He was looking at his hands, ecstatic. "I'm invisible. This is great. The girls' showers can't stop me now. Can you have some ambition?" I rolled my eyes. "Ambition doesn't let you watch pretty girls," he retorted. Then his face fell. "Wait, it's the apocalypse. There are no pretty girls in the showers anymore, just zombies. Maybe I'll pass." "Good choice," I said. "But Ben, how did this happen? Why do I have a superpower?" "It's the apocalypse," I said, nodding. "It changed things. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse, but in this world, any edge is a chance to survive." "What about you?" he asked. "What's your power?" I thought for a moment. "I see things others can't. Like your invisibility. I can see right through it." "Damn it," Chunhao groaned. "You're my natural counter. I guess I'm never getting the upper hand with you. You want me to start calling you boss instead?" I teased. "No, no way." He waved his hands. "But Ben, since we both have powers, do you think we can do something big? Like, be heroes?" "It's too early for that," I said, shaking my head. "Our powers aren't meant for direct combat. Surviving a city full of zombies is still going to be hell." "True," he admitted. "But I can steal food now. At least we won't starve." "Don't get cocky. Those things have sharp ears. If you make a sound, your invisibility won't save you. You need to practice moving silently. We'll find a zombie later and test your limits." "Are you sure you don't mean test my life?" "Trust yourself," I said. "By the way, your clothes turned invisible with you. Does it work with objects you're holding?" He picked up a brick from the roof and activated his power. The brick vanished along with him. "It works," he shouted. "What about people?" I asked. "Try to take me with you." He reappeared, grabbed my arm, and tried to trigger the ability. Nothing happened. In fact, he couldn't even turn himself invisible while holding me. "Doesn't work," he muttered, frowning. "So, no living things," I noted. "I wonder if touching someone makes you reappear." We tested it immediately. We had to know our limits before our lives depended on them. He turned invisible and tapped my shoulder. The moment his hand touched me, his body flickered back into view. We tried it with bricks, with different parts of his body. Every time he touched me, the cloak broke. "Be careful," I warned him. "Invisibility isn't a magic shield. If you bump into anything living, you're dead meat." "Understood," he said, nodding seriously. Suddenly, a violent banging echoed from the rooftop door. "Is anyone in there? Open up. Please, open the door. There are zombies." A panicked voice screamed from the other side. The banging grew frantic. We both froze. "Ben, what do we do?" Chunhao whispered. I focused my vision, looking straight through the heavy iron door. 3 terrified guys were standing there. One was pounding on the metal. The other 2 were holding a steel pipe and a stool, desperately swinging at 2 zombies trying to crawl up the stairs. They were holding them off for now, but they were losing ground. I sighed. "Open it. If they keep making that noise, they'll bring every zombie in the building to this roof. The ladder won't hold forever." I looked at Chunhao. "But stay sharp. There are 3 of them, and they're armed. In this world, classmates can turn into enemies faster than the dead." "I got it," Chunhao said. I moved the heavy wooden ladder away from the door. "I'll pull the ladder back. You open the door. The second they're in, slam it shut." I watched through the door as the boys pushed the zombies back one last time. I signaled Chunhao. He yanked the door open, and the 3 of them scrambled inside like their lives depended on it, because they did. We slammed the door shut, and I jammed the ladder back into place just as the first thud hit the outside of the iron. The zombies had arrived. The strength of 2 zombies wasn't enough to force open an iron door braced by a heavy wooden ladder. The metal groaned, but it held. The 3 newcomers collapsed onto the concrete, their chests heaving as they gasped for air. They were pale, trembling, and clearly terrified out of their minds. It took a long time for them to catch their breath. Finally, one of them, a skinny guy, looked up at Chunhao and me. His voice shook with lingering fear. "That was terrifying. Why did you take so long to open the door? We were almost eaten. Chen Hao's face darkened instantly. What kind of attitude is that? We just saved your lives. Instead of saying thank you, you're blaming us? A tall guy holding a stool stood up, looking defensive. The rooftop is a public area. Anyone can come up here. You guys blocking the door like that. It's pretty unethical, don't you think? Exactly, the third guy added, his skin a shade darker than the others. The zombies broke into our dorm. We came here for safety, and you had the door barricaded. You almost got us killed. That's basically murder. Chen Hao opened his mouth to argue, but I stepped forward and cut him off. You're right, I said, my voice calm and serious. We shouldn't have blocked the door. I reached for the ladder, ready to pull it away from the frame. Wait. No, the tall guy screamed, his face turning white. Brother, let's talk. Don't move it. Yeah, man, stay cool. There's no need for that. The skinny guy scrambled backward, nearly tripping over his own feet. They stared at the door, cold sweat dripping down their necks. There were two hungry monsters right on the other side. If I moved that ladder, they were dead meat. I thought you said blocking the door was unethical? I asked, putting on my best innocent expression. No, it's ethical. Extremely ethical, the tall guy yelled. It's not murder at all. Not even a little bit. Oh, good to know. I nodded slowly. I let my hand slip off the ladder. The three of them let out a collective sigh of relief. But then, I gripped the wood again. Actually, I still think I should move it, I mused. What if someone else comes along? We shouldn't be selfish. Their hearts jumped back into their throats. No one else is coming, the tall guy shouted desperately. We live on the 7th floor. Every dorm door is shut tight, and the hallways are crawling with those things. Nobody is coming out. Oh, then I feel much better. I nodded again. I shook the ladder slightly, making it rattle against the iron. I frowned. This ladder feels a bit unstable, though. That's dangerous. They look like they were about to have a heart attack. Then find something to jam it with. This isn't a joke. I looked at the base of the ladder, then shifted my gaze to the steel pipe in the tall guy's hand. Hey, brother. Let me borrow that pipe. I think it's just the right size to wedge under the leg and keep it steady. Without a second thought, the tall guy tossed the pipe to me. He didn't care about the weapon. He just wanted that door to stay shut. I caught the pipe, tested its weight, and gave it a few practice swings. It felt good. There. Much better. It's stable now. The three of them finally relaxed, leaning back against the wall. They didn't even realize they had just handed over their only real weapon. I smiled. In a world like this, I couldn't afford to be naive. I had to neutralize every potential threat before it started. That was the only way to stay alive. We're from room 308, I said, initiating a proper introduction. I'm Yongbin. This is Chen Hao. Who are you guys? Room 716, the tall guy replied. I'm Zhao Kuan. This is Shou Ho and Lao Hei. Just the three of you? I asked. Zhao Kuan shuddered. There was a fourth, but he turned. Luckily, we noticed early this morning, otherwise we'd be done for. Impressive, I said, genuinely surprised. You managed to escape a zombie in a cramped dorm? It wasn't really an escape, Zhao Kuan admitted. It was 3 against 1. He fell off the top bunk, and we managed to pin him down and tie him to the bed with sheets. That's how we survived. Still, that's good work. So, why are you guys all the way up here from the 3rd floor? We were up here drinking and talking last night. I lied easily. We never went back to the dorm. Man, you guys are lucky, Zhao Kuan sighed. We kept talking for a while, and the atmosphere settled into something almost friendly. We were all students, after all. Without a direct conflict of interest, it was easy to get along. But by noon, the harmony broke. A loud stomach growl echoed across the roof. Shouho clutched his belly, looking embarrassed. Do you guys have any food? He asked. We haven't eaten since yesterday. We're starving. I spread my hands wide. Does it look like there's a grocery store up here? We're in the same boat. Then what do we do? Shouho groaned. Even if the zombies don't get us, we're going to starve to death. Just hold on, Lao Hei said, trying to be the optimist. The authorities will be here soon to rescue us. And what if they don't come for days? Chen Hao countered. That's impossible, Lao Hei muttered. Nothing is impossible now, Chen Hao said. We can't just sit here hoping for a miracle. We have to find our own food. How? Zhao Kuan snapped. There are 2 monsters guarding the only exit. We can't even leave the roof. I looked at the iron door. Maybe we should let them in. The three of them froze. We let them in, we kill them, and then we go down to the dorms to scavenge, I said calmly. Are you insane? Zhao Kun stood up. If we let them in, we all die. They had fought one before. They knew how terrifying those things were. They had finally found a safe spot, and the last thing they wanted was to face the dead again. There are only 2 of them, I argued. And there are 5 of us. We can take them. If we wait until there are more of them in the hallway, we'll never get out. You don't get it, Zhao Kun growled. You haven't fought them. They don't feel pain. You hit them, and they just keep coming. One scratch or one bite, and it's over. He's right, Shoho added, shaking his head. If you want to die, go ahead, but don't drag us down with you. Even Chun-Hao looked worried. Bin, are you sure about this? It doesn't matter if I'm sure, I said. We have to take this step eventually. This is a rooftop. Zombies have no brains. All we have to do is lure them in and shove them off the edge of the building. It's the easiest way to kill them. If we can't handle 2, we're already dead. Chun-Hao took a breath and nodded. Okay, I'm with you. No, we don't agree, Zhao Kun shouted. We were here first. I snapped, my patience wearing thin. Since when do I need your permission? I don't care. You aren't opening that door. Zhao Kun reached for his steel pipe, only to realize I was still holding it. His face turned a nasty shade of purple. Give me my pipe back. You think I'm that stupid? I let out a cold laugh. That's mine, you thief. It's mine now, I said, and I'm opening the door. Over my dead body, Zhao Kun yelled. I didn't argue. I just lifted my foot and kicked the ladder away. It clattered to the floor, leaving the door unsupported. You lunatic, Zhao Kun screamed. He and his 2 friends lunged for the door, throwing their weight against the iron to keep it shut. You're going to kill us all. Better to fight now than to starve to death later, I said coldly. If you're too scared to fight, then keep holding the door. Let's see how long your strength lasts. The tension was suffocating. Suddenly, a massive thud shook the door. The zombies outside had heard the commotion. They began slamming into the metal with renewed frenzy. Zhao Kun and his friends groaned, their muscles straining as they fought to hold back the dead. Zhao Kun and his friends saw that Chun-Hao and I weren't moving to help. Their faces turned pale, then a sickly shade of green. What do we do, Kun? Shoho gasped, his voice trembling. We can't hold this much longer. Zhao Kun's expression shifted rapidly between terror and rage. Finally, he gritted his teeth and looked at me. Fine, we'll fight, but we need a plan. You can't just kick the ladder away and expect us to wing it. I nodded slowly, pretending to consider his words. You actually have a point. I walked over, picked up the ladder, and propped it back against the iron door. The pressure was instantly relieved. The 3 of them collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. They thought getting to the rooftop meant they were safe. They hadn't expected it to get this intense this fast. After a long minute, Zhao Kun looked up at me. All right, how do we do this? I scanned our surroundings. Here's the plan. Shoho and Lao Hei, you 2 grab the ladder. When those things come through, use the ladder like a ram to pin one of them against the wall. The rest of us will handle the second one. We need to move fast and shove them both off the edge. Easy for you to say, Zhao Kun countered. Zombies are fast. That ladder is heavy and awkward. If they get past it, we're dead meat. I've been watching them, I said, my voice steady. They're about as strong as a normal person. Their only advantage is that they don't feel pain. But they have a fatal flaw. They're idiots. They don't dodge. If those 2 pin one with the ladder immediately, it won't have a chance to get close. If you mess that up, that's on you. Zhao Kun scowled. Fine. But what about the other one? I don't have a weapon. I'm not fighting a zombie with my bare hands. He stared pointedly at the steel pipe in my hand, the one I'd taken from him. There are plenty of bricks lying around, I said, gesturing to a pile of construction debris. Pick up 2 and get to work. Bricks? Are you serious? Zhao Kun snapped. Why don't you use bricks if they're so great? Because I have a pipe, I replied simply. I looked at the group, my expression turning serious. Ready? They nodded nervously. Zhao Kun was clearly bitter, but he knew I held the power now. He had no choice but to follow my lead. I'll count to 3, I said. Lao Hei, pull the ladder. Lao Hei and Shoho gripped the rails, their hands slick with sweat. 1, 2, 3. They yanked the ladder away. Bam! The iron door flew open under the weight of the corpses outside. Two bloodstained zombies stumbled onto the roof. This was the first time Chun Hao and I had seen them this close. Their eyes were a milky, horrifying red. The stench of rotting meat hit us like a physical wall, making my stomach churn. We'd prepared ourselves mentally, but the reality was a nightmare. The zombies locked onto us instantly and lunged. Lao He and Shouho didn't freeze. They slammed the ladder into the first zombie, pinning it against the concrete wall. The creature's limbs flailed wildly, its claws scraping against the metal, but it couldn't overcome the strength of two desperate men. "Now!" I yelled. The three of us charged the second zombie. It let out a guttural roar and leaped at me. I stepped to the side, feeling the rush of air as it missed, and swung the steel pipe with everything I had. The impact vibrated up my arm, numbing my fingers. I'd hit it square in the head, but the creature didn't even flinch. It turned and lunged again. Damn it, I thought, backing away. The movies said the head was the weak point. Is its skull made of iron? Suddenly, Chun Hao appeared from the side and smashed a brick into the zombie's temple. The brick shattered into dust. Dark, foul-smelling blood leaked from the wound. This hit actually got its attention. The zombie snarled and turned toward Chun Hao. Chun Hao didn't hesitate. He bolted. The zombie chased him toward the edge of the roof. Zhao Kun rushed in from the flank and slammed another brick into the creature's shoulder, but it ignored him completely, focused entirely on Chun Hao. The rooftop was small. Within seconds, Chun Hao was backed against the chest-high railing. Just as the zombie reached for his throat, Chun Hao's figure vanished. He was just gone. Zhao Kun stopped dead, his eyes nearly popping out of his head. Where did he go? I didn't stop to explain. I knew about Chun Hao's awakening. I rushed forward, swinging my pipe to keep the zombie's attention on me and away from the edge where Chun Hao was hiding. Where is he? Zhao Kun stammered, joining me. I'm right here, Chun Hao's voice said as he reappeared a few feet away. Zhao Kun nearly tripped over his own feet. How did you just disappear? It's a magic trick, Chun Hao said casually. Never seen one before? You're telling me that's a magic trick? Zhao Kun yelled, his voice cracking. What else would it be? Invisibility. Chun Hao rolled his eyes. Stop talking and help me, I shouted, struggling to keep the zombie back. I can't hold him forever. Zhao Kun raised his brick, but I stopped him. Don't bother. We're at the edge. Just kick him. Chun Hao and Zhao Kun shared a look. I've got it, Chun Hao said. He took a short, explosive sprint and delivered a massive front kick to the zombie's chest. The force sent the creature sailing over the railing. Nice, I exhaled. The three of us leaned over the edge to watch it fall. Thud! The body hit the pavement below with a sickening crunch. Dark blood pooled around it. We watched, waiting for the end. Then, the zombie's limbs twitched. It shakily stood back up, looking around with vacant eyes before wandering off to find new prey. You've got to be kidding me, Zhao Kun muttered. That didn't kill it. Stop complaining and help with the other one, I ordered. On the other side of the roof, Lao He and Shouho were drenched in sweat, still straining to hold the ladder against the first zombie. Let go on my mark, I said as we ran over. Then we all pushed together. With 5 of us, it was a different game. As soon as they pulled the ladder back, the zombie lunged. We caught it in the rungs of the ladder and, with a collective roar of effort, shoved it toward the perimeter. We didn't stop until the ladder hit the railing, catapulting the creature into the air. Another heavy thud echoed from below. We peered over the edge again. This time, the zombie lay still in a pool of gore. Its head had split open like a dropped melon. Finally, Zhao Kun breathed. Why did that one stay down? His brain is smeared on the sidewalk, Chun Hao said, wiping sweat from his forehead. That'll usually do it. I nodded slowly, thinking it over. It seemed the movies hadn't lied to us after all. If you wanted to kill a zombie, you had to go for the head. Close the door, I said. Let's get some rest. We dragged the ladder back and propped it firmly against the metal frame. We all collapsed onto the concrete, gasping for air. The fight had been short, but the mental toll was massive. We were just ordinary college students. Facing those monsters required a level of mental fortitude none of us knew we had. Now that the adrenaline was fading, I could see the others starting to tremble. Suddenly, a sharp intake of breath hissed through the air. Chun Hao was clutching his leg, his face contorted in pain. What's wrong? I asked, rushing over to him. He carefully pulled up his pant leg. 3 long, jagged red gashes stared back at us. My heart skipped a beat. How did this happen? I asked, my voice tight. I think, when I kicked that zombie, Chunhao said with a weak, bitter smile. It must have lashed out and caught me. The air on the rooftop turned to ice. Zhao Kuan and his 2 lackeys scrambled backward, putting as much distance between us and Chunhao as possible. I frowned, my eyes fixed on the wound. Chunhao looked at their terrified faces and realized exactly what they were thinking. His face went pale, a deathly ash-gray color. Binji, he whispered, his voice shaking. Am I going to turn? No, I said firmly, trying to sound convincing. Don't think like that. You'll be fine. How can he be fine? Shoho blurted out. The internet says if you get bitten or scratched, you turn into one of them. It happens fast. Shut up, I snapped. Nobody asked for your opinion. He's just stating the facts, Zhao Kuan added, though he stayed far away. Is there any point in lying to yourself? He's a ticking time bomb. That's my business, I said, gripping my steel pipe. I looked at them with cold, murderous eyes. If you say one more word, I'll make sure none of you ever speak again. What? You want to take on all 3 of us? Zhao Kuan challenged, trying to look brave despite his trembling hands. He'd hated me since the moment I took his weapon. You're welcome to try me, I replied icily. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Chunhao reached out and patted my shoulder. Binji, don't, he said quietly. It's not worth it. I know what's coming. I lowered the pipe and looked at him. My eyes were stinging. How's I'm sorry. If I hadn't told you to kick that thing, this wouldn't have happened. It's not your fault, he said, forcing a smile. I was careless. You know, Binji, you're the person I admire most in this world. Being your brother is the thing I'm proudest of. If I really start to change, can you kill me before I turn? I don't want to hurt anyone. Tears were welling up in his eyes. You aren't going to turn, I insisted. There has to be a way. I activated my special ability, focusing my vision entirely on his wound. Deep within the gashes, I saw it, a faint, wispy gray energy. It was slowly trying to eat away at his flesh. But then, I noticed something else. Inside Chunhao's body, there was another energy, a different force fighting back. The 2 powers were locked in a stalemate. A surge of hope shot through me. I didn't know why he had that counter energy, but it meant he might actually have a chance. Binji, can you do one more thing for me? Chunhao continued, lost in his own goodbye. After I'm gone, go find my parents. They haven't replied to my messages. I'm worried about them. I wasn't really listening to his rambling anymore. I was watching the gray energy. It was fading. Slowly but surely, the gray mist was disappearing, neutralized by whatever was inside him. I let out a long breath I didn't know I was holding. All right, stop being so dramatic, I said, patting his leg. You're going to be fine. I mean it. Chunhao looked at me, stunned. Really? You're sure? Believe me, I said. You guys are celebrating way too early, Zhao Kuan called out. He hasn't turned yet. It's only a matter of time. I'm telling you, throw him off the roof now, or we're all dead. I'm not gambling with my life. Try it, I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. If any of you moves toward him, I'll break your legs. Zhao Kuan fumed, pacing back and forth. He wanted to fight, but the sight of the steel pipe in my hand kept him at bay. Fine. Have it your way, but don't say I didn't warn you. You're sitting right next to him. When he turns, you'll be the first one he eats. He retreated to the far corner of the roof with his 2 friends. Binji, maybe you should stay back a bit, Chunhao said, still worried. Just in case. There is no in case, I said. Sit still. I'm going to wrap this up. It's not deep, but it's hot out here, and we don't need an infection. I tore a strip of cloth from my sleeve and knelt down to bandage his leg. The gray energy was completely gone now. Chunhao watched me work, his eyes red. He didn't say thank you. Between us, we didn't need to. There. Rest for a while. By tomorrow, you'll be back to normal. I stood up and noticed his bloodshot eyes. Hey, don't scare me. Are you turning? No. Chunhao said, rubbing his eyes quickly. Just got some sand in them. Good, I sighed. Honestly, it doesn't even hurt that much, he added. As long as I don't turn into a monster, I can still fight. Save your strength. We've got more work to do. Half an hour passed. Zhao Kun and the others kept glancing over, looking confused. The internet said it only takes a few minutes, Shouho whispered. Why is he still normal? It doesn't make sense, Laohei muttered. Is the internet wrong? Can't be, Zhao Kun said, staring at us. I saw a video of a guy turning. It was instant. Maybe his body is just different. He paused, his expression shifting. Actually, I saw something weird earlier. That zombie was about to grab him, and then he just disappeared for a second. That's why the zombie went after Yang Bin instead. No way, Shouho said. That sounds like some movie stuff. I saw it with my own eyes, Zhao Kun insisted. He told me it was a magic trick. What kind of magic trick doesn't use props? There's something wrong with that guy. We need to be careful. He went quiet as I started walking toward them. I'm going to open the door and lure more of them up here, I announced. What do you guys say? Again, their eyes went wide. Unless you want to starve to death up here, I said. If we clear out the 7th floor one by one, we can get into the dorms and find food. Their faces lit up at the mention of food. Even Zhao Kun looked at me with a newfound, if grudging, respect. They were all waiting to be rescued, but I was already planning our next move. And the best part for them? I wasn't asking them to be the bait. I'll be the one to lure them, I said. Get ready. Zhao Kun couldn't find a single flaw in my logic, but he still had to act tough. Can you handle it? He asked, trying to save face. If not, I can go. I know the 7th floor better than you anyway. I didn't argue. Fine. You go. Zhao Kun froze. He stared at me like I had just grown a second head. I didn't give him a chance to back out. I picked up a few stones from the ground and shoved them into his hands. Be careful, I told him. If you see one, throw a stone to get its attention and lead it back. Don't pull too many at once. Zhao Kun stood there with a handful of rocks, his mouth hanging open. He looked like he wanted to slap himself for being so loud-mouthed. Under our watchful eyes, he had no choice. He turned and trudged down the stairs, looking like he was walking to his own execution. He crept down slowly, terrified of what was around every corner. He reached the landing and didn't see anything at first. Then, he spotted 2 pairs of blood-red eyes staring straight at him from the shadows. Holy crap, he yelled. He turned tail and bolted. 2 zombies let out a guttural roar and chased him right back up to the roof. How many? I shouted as soon as he cleared the door. 2, he gasped. Damn it, I told you to bring one. I snapped. You think I can control them? He shot back. I didn't have time to argue. I went into commander mode. Same plan. Shouho, Laohei, pin one with the ladder. We'll take the other. We were faster this time. Experience was a hell of a teacher. As the first zombie charged in, the ladder slammed into its chest, pinning it against the wall. The second one didn't even know what hit it. I cracked it with the steel pipe while Chun Hao and Zhao Kun grabbed a heavy, high-legged stool. They didn't want to use their feet and risk a scratch, so they used the stool like a battering ram. They slammed it into the zombie's chest, sending it flying over the edge of the roof. Then we all turned and pushed the pinned one off too. The whole thing took less than a minute. I walked over to Zhao Kun and held out my hand. We had our issues, but they had fought hard. There was no room for petty grudges when the world was ending. He looked surprised, but he took my hand. Good work, I said. He nodded, finally dropping the ego. Yeah, but can we take turns? That was terrifying. I smiled. Sure, I'll go next. He didn't know I wanted to go anyway. I had my true eye. That's what I called my new ability. I could see through walls. I could minimize the risk. I went down the stairs and activated my vision. The world turned transparent. I saw 2 zombies in the room to the left and a hallway full of them. 3 were clustered near the stairs on the left, and 1 was alone on the right. If I just walked down, all 4 would jump me. I tossed a stone to the right. The 3 on the left didn't care, but the lone one followed the sound. I tossed another stone closer to the stairs. It followed again. Hey, I whispered, poking my head out. The zombie's head snapped toward me. It lunged. I let it back up, and the guys were ready. The ladder hit it like a truck, and it was over the edge before it knew I wasn't alone. Down on the first floor, 3 students were hiding in a dorm room, shivering. They watched through the window as bodies rained from the sky. These zombies are really something, one whispered. They're jumping off the roof now. They don't feel pain, another muttered. But how are we supposed to get out if they're falling from above too? Just stay quiet, the third said. We have enough bread for 2 days. Maybe rescue will come by then. Back on the roof, Zhao Kuan offered to go again. He was trying to be fair. No, I said. I'll do it. I knew there were 3 of them waiting together now. If he went down, he was dead. I went back and tried to split them with stones, but they were stuck together like glue. I realized I had to take them all at once. I stepped into view, and all 3 roared. Heads up, I screamed as I sprinted back onto the roof. There's 3 of them. The guys jumped. 3? Are you crazy? Same plan. I shouted. Shou Ho, Lao Hei louder the first one. Chen Hao, Zhao Kuan, use the stool on the second. I've got the last one. The 3 monsters burst through the door, and the rooftop turned into a battlefield. I pinned one zombie against the wall while leading another toward the edge of the roof. I gripped my steel pipe and swung with everything I had. A dull thud echoed as the metal connected with its skull. I didn't hold back. Dark red blood sprayed across the concrete. The vibration from the impact traveled up the pipe, turning my entire arm numb. My weapon was buzzing in my hand, but the blow worked. The zombie's movements slowed down, its coordination failing. I saw my chance. I swung again, aiming for the exact same spot. Chen Hao and the others were busy holding back the other 2 monsters. They couldn't help me. I had to finish this one myself. I couldn't get it over the edge, so I had to end it right here. I rained blows down on its head. Hitting them anywhere else was a waste of energy. The skull was the only target that mattered. Blood poured down the creature's face as its movements turned sluggish. Finally, with one last desperate swing, I felt the bone give way. The skull shattered. The zombie stopped moving and collapsed. A sickening mixture of red and white fluids pooled around it on the rooftop. The adrenaline vanished instantly. Even with all the courage I'd built up, my stomach flipped. I leaned over and started dry heaving. I hadn't thought about the gore while I was fighting for my life, but looking at it now made my vision swim. My stomach was empty, but I kept gagging until I was coughing up bitter bile. The other guys were watching from a distance. Their faces were ghost white. They started vomiting too. They were just college students. They weren't ready for a scene like this. But they had it worse than me. They were throwing up while still desperately holding the ladder against the remaining zombies. If they let go, we were all dead. I forced myself to stand up. I didn't look at the corpse. I wiped my mouth and hurried over to Chen Hao and Zhao Kuan. They were struggling to hold back the last thrashing monster. I said, my voice weak, let's just throw this one over. They both nodded frantically. I could see the fear in Zhao Kuan's eyes when he looked at me now. He realized I was capable of caving a head in with a pipe. Even if it was a zombie, it used to be a person. That realization terrified him. I didn't waste time talking. I told them to let go, lured the zombie to the edge, and Chen Hao and Zhao Kuan used the stool to ram it off the building. We teamed up and tossed the final one over right after. When it was over, we all collapsed. We weren't just physically exhausted. We were drained from the horror of it. Every time someone glanced at the body with the crushed head, they started retching again. After a long silence, I stood up. The others watched me with wide, terrified eyes as I walked straight back toward the corpse. I knew that if I wanted to survive this world, I had to get used to this. I had to break the mental barrier now. I stood over the body and forced myself to look at the mess. I stared until the nausea started to fade. Chen Hao hesitated, then grit his teeth and walked over to stand beside me. Zhao Kuan and the others looked at us like we were psychos. Zhao Kuan knew why we were doing it, but he couldn't find the courage to join us. Good job, Hao, I whispered. Whatever you do, Brother Ben, I'm with you, Chen Hao said firmly. I nodded. Let's get rid of it. We picked up the body together and heaved it over the side. The others finally breathed a sigh of relief. They didn't realize that in those few minutes, Chen Hao and I had already left them behind. We were changing into something else. Rest for 30 minutes, I announced. Then we go again. Nobody argued. Zhao Kuan was humbled. He looked at me with genuine wariness now. Can you, maybe not pull so many next time? Zhao Kuan asked quietly. That was almost too much. I didn't have a choice, I replied. Those 3 were stuck together. I had to take them all. Maybe I should go lure them next time, he suggested. No, I said. Next we have to clear the 7th floor. If you go down there, you'll probably pull the whole hallway. How do you know you won't? I have my ways. If you really want to go, I won't stop you. But there are at least 30 or 40 of them down there. If they swarm you, they won't even leave your bones behind. Zhao Kun shivered and looked away. Never mind. You go. Half an hour later, I headed back down. The 7th floor was crowded, but luckily, the zombies were spread out. They were wandering aimlessly. I hid by the stairwell, using my true sight to track their movements through the walls. I waited for one to drift close, then tossed a stone to bait it toward the stairs. One by one, I led them back to the roof where the team pushed them off. It was working perfectly. We cleared 17 of them without a hitch. But the 17th one was different. I spotted it with my true sight and threw the stone just like before. It followed the sound to the stairs. But as soon as it saw me, it lunged. My heart skipped a beat. This thing was fast. Much faster than the others. If I hadn't been keeping my distance, it would have caught me before I reached the roof. Heads up, I yelled as I burst through the door. The guys slammed the ladder into the zombie as it charged. Usually, the impact sent them flying. This time, the zombie just stumbled a few steps and stabilized itself. Everyone froze. The zombie didn't wait. It sprinted at the group with terrifying speed. The ladder was too heavy and clumsy for a close-quarters fight like this. As the monster closed the gap, the 4 guys panicked and threw the ladder at it before scrambling back. The zombie swiped the ladder aside like it was a toy and kept coming. I saw my opening. I stepped in from the side and swung my pipe with every ounce of strength I had left. Clang! The sound was metallic and sharp. My steel pipe actually bent from the force of the hit. I stared in horror. The zombie's head didn't break. It wasn't even bleeding. I had hit it with everything, and it didn't care. The monster turned its cold, dead eyes toward me. It let out a guttural roar and leaped. I rolled to the side, barely avoiding its claws, and struck again. Another direct hit to the skull. Another useless blow. Watch out, I screamed to the others. This one is different. This zombie was too fast. I struggled to keep my distance, dodging its lunges by a hair's breadth. Every time I swung my pipe and connected with its head, the impact felt hollow. It didn't even flinch. I felt a wave of helplessness wash over me. How was I supposed to kill something that didn't feel pain? The others watched from the sidelines, desperate but unarmed. Chunhao grabbed a loose brick and started to rush forward, but Zhao Kun grabbed his arm. You're going to get yourself killed. Zhao Kun barked. The steel pipe didn't do anything. What's a brick going to do? Then do something. Chunhao screamed. Bin is going to die. Zhao Kun's eyes scanned the rooftop frantically. They landed on the heavy ladder we had used for the door. I have an idea, he shouted. We pick up the ladder and use it as a ram. 2 on each side. We knock it down and pin it. Chunhao's eyes lit up. It was a solid plan. The 4 of them grabbed the ladder, positioning themselves in pairs at both ends. They charged toward the chaos. Bin, get down, Chunhao yelled. I didn't hesitate. I threw myself into a roll across the concrete. Crash. The middle of the ladder slammed into the zombie's chest, sending it flying backward. It hit the ground hard. Before it could scramble back up, the 4 men threw their entire weight onto the ladder, pinning the monster to the roof. The zombie thrashed wildly, its strength nearly matching all 4 of them combined, but they held firm. Good job, I shouted, scrambling to my feet. But our relief was short-lived. A sharp crack echoed through the air. A fracture appeared in the center of the wooden ladder. My heart skipped a beat. If that ladder snapped, we were all dead. I didn't think. I lunged forward, gripping my bent steel pipe with both hands. I swung with every ounce of desperation in my soul. Thud, thud, thud. I aimed for the exact same spot on its skull. The sound was sickening. Finally, the skin broke. Dark blood began to leak out. The zombie's struggles grew even more violent as the crack in the ladder widened. I went feral. I ignored the gore splashing onto my face and kept swinging, targeting the open wound. The steel pipe deformed in my hands, bending into a useless curve, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. After dozens of blows, the thrashing finally slowed. Then, the monster went still. I collapsed onto my butt, gasping for air. I was covered in a mixture of red and white filth. I probably looked like I had just crawled out of hell. Except for Chunhao, the others stared at me with pure, unadulterated terror. They had just watched me turn a monster's head into pulp. As the adrenaline faded, a stinging pain flared across my chest and arms. I looked down and my stomach dropped. My clothes were torn, and deep scratches lined my skin. The zombie had caught me during the struggle. "Bin, you're going to be okay, right?" Chunhao asked, his voice trembling. I didn't answer. I activated my true sight and focused on the wounds. I could see a gray, misty energy trying to seep into my bloodstream, but a different glow inside my body was pushing it back. I exhaled slowly. I was like Chunhao. Whatever gave us our abilities also gave us immunity to the virus. "I'm fine," I said, forcing a smile. "If you survived, I will too." Chunhao let out a massive sigh of relief. Zhao Kuan and the others were still backing away, their eyes locked on my wounds. "Are you sure?" Zhao Kuan asked, his voice tight. "We can't risk it." I narrowed my eyes at him. "What? You want to push me off the roof now?" He flinched and looked away. He knew better than to provoke a man who had just crushed a skull with a bent pipe. "Bin, what was that thing?" Chunhao asked, trying to change the subject. "Why was it so much stronger than the others?" "I don't know," I muttered. I turned back to the corpse and activated True Sight again. I scanned the body from head to toe, looking for anything unusual. When I reached the shattered skull, I saw it. Tucked inside the brain matter was a tiny, red crystal, no bigger than a grain of rice. Curiosity got the better of me. I reached into the gore, ignoring the wet squelch of the remains. Behind me, I heard Zhao Kuan and the others start to gag. They hadn't eaten in a day, so they just ended up dry heaving violently. Even Chunhao looked pale, watching me dig through a brain. My fingers closed around the object. It was a warm, smooth crystal. I pulled it out and held it up to the light. "What is that?" Chunhao whispered, stepping closer. I shook my head and looked at it through True Sight. The crystal wasn't solid matter. It was a dense, purified cluster of energy. And for some reason, every cell in my body was screaming for it. I felt a hunger that had nothing to do with my stomach. I wiped the blood off the crystal using a clean patch of my shirt. Then, while the others watched in stunned silence, I popped it into my mouth and swallowed. Chunhao couldn't take it anymore. He doubled over and vomited right there on the roof. Zhao Kuan and his cronies followed suit, retching until they were spitting up bile. They thought I had lost my mind. I didn't care. The moment the crystal hit my stomach, it dissolved into a wave of pure heat. The energy surged through my limbs, knitting my wounds and making my muscles ache with new power. I felt my entire body being reinforced from the inside out. I felt a surge of heat radiating from my stomach to my fingertips. My physical strength had nearly doubled in an instant, and the gray energy that had been slowly corroding my body vanished completely. I clenched my fists, feeling the raw power pulsing through my veins. Then, something strange happened. A vision flickered in my mind. I saw a map of the Big Dipper constellation, 9 stars set against a dark void. One corner of the first star began to glow with a faint light. My heart skipped a beat. I had seen this exact image the night before, but I dismissed it as a drunken hallucination. Now, seeing it clearly while sober, I realized it was no coincidence. Was this fate, or something else entirely? I didn't have long to think as Chunhao finally finished vomiting and wiped his mouth, looking at me like I was a lunatic. "Bingu," he stammered, his voice trembling. "I know you're hungry, but you can't just eat, whatever that was. It's good for you." I whispered back with a small smirk. "I'll explain later." I turned to Zhao Kuan and the others. They were staring at me as if I were a monster. I sighed, feeling the awkwardness in the air. "Is it really that big of a deal?" I asked. "I'm just filling my stomach. Are you going to turn into one of them?" Zhao Kuan asked, his voice thick with terror. "Why else would you eat that? You're just inexperienced," I replied coldly. "When you're hungry enough, you'll eat anything. You might even consider human meat." "No way," Shoho shouted, his face pale. "I'd rather starve to death than do something that's sick." "He's right," Lao He added, shivering. "We aren't perverts like you." I shrugged and said, "I hope you stay that way." I had never eaten a person, but I knew what extreme hunger felt like. I had once fought a stray dog over a scrap of food. I knew how quickly morals disappeared when your stomach started eating itself. "Rest for a bit," I said, looking at the trio. "Then we keep going." "I can't," Lao He groaned, collapsing onto the rooftop floor. I have zero strength left. I'm so hungry I can't even pick up a brick. Me neither, Shoho muttered, leaning against the wall. If I don't eat soon, I won't even be able to stand up. I shook my head. Their weak stomachs were becoming a liability. They had spent more time puking than fighting. We need food, Zhao Kuan said with a bitter smile. Otherwise, none of us are going to be useful for the next round. I nodded. I wasn't hungry anymore. The crystal's energy had satisfied me, but I knew the group wouldn't last much longer in this state. Fine, I said. We'll go down and scavenge. The zombies near the stairs are mostly cleared out. There's a dorm room right by the landing that looked empty. We'll check there first. The mention of food acted like a shot of adrenaline. The guys suddenly found the strength to sit up. Chun Hao and I will go, I said. The rest of you stay here. Too many people will just attract attention. They hesitated. I could see the suspicion in their eyes. They were afraid we'd find food and eat it all ourselves. I'm coming with you, Zhao Kuan said firmly. I gave a short nod. I had planned to take Chun Hao because of his invisibility, but since we were two separate factions, I knew I had to play fair to keep the peace. I told Chun Hao and the others to wait. Then Zhao Kuan and I crept toward the 7th floor stairwell. I activated True Sight. The room was clear, and the zombies in the hallway were far enough away for us to make a move. I signaled Zhao Kuan, and we moved in a low crouch, slipping through the open door of the dormitory. Zhao Kuan was a big guy, and his movements were clumsy. As he scrambled inside, two zombies at the far end of the hall paused. They turned their rotting heads, curious about the noise, and began to shuffle toward us. I didn't wait to see if they'd speed up. I stepped inside and locked the door behind us. The room was a disaster. It looked like a struggle had happened here, and judging by the bloodstains, the students living here hadn't won. We tore the place apart, flipping mattresses and checking lockers. After a few minutes, we found our prize: 2 cups of instant noodles, a few ham sausages, and a single pack of bread. That's it, Zhao Kuan complained. This isn't even enough for one person. It's better than nothing, I snapped. People don't usually keep a grocery store in their dorms. Fair point, he sighed. Let's get back. Not yet, I said, looking around. We need weapons. That steel pipe is trashed, and the ladder broke. We're defenseless. Even though my strength had increased, I wasn't arrogant enough to think I could punch my way through a horde. I needed something with reach. I don't see anything useful in here, Zhao Kuan said. Where did you even get that pipe from before? Found it under a bed, he muttered, looking annoyed. I was saving it for a fight, but I never expected to use it on monsters. And then you went and tricked me out of it. Tricked? I let out a dry laugh. I used it better than you would have. Besides, it's broken now anyway. Yeah, because you hit things like a sledgehammer, Zhao Kuan rolled his eyes. I ignored his complaining and looked at the bunk beds. The ladders leading to the top bunks were made of solid iron. They were the perfect length. If I could strip the rungs, I'd have 2 solid iron rods. Forget it, Zhao Kuan said, seeing where I was looking. Those things are welded on. We don't have tools to get them off. I didn't listen. I walked over and examined the welding points. The ladder was attached to the frame at the top and braced by a small iron pipe at the bottom. It was meant to stay still, not to support a massive amount of lateral force. Before, I wouldn't have stood a chance. But now, I felt different. I gripped the base of the ladder with both hands, planted my feet, and pulled with everything I had. With a loud, metallic crack, the weld snapped. I ripped the iron support clean off the bed frame. Zhao Kuan's jaw hit the floor. Holy crap, are you on steroids? The weld was weak, I said casually, though I knew better. You just have to use a bit of force. Really? Zhao Kuan looked skeptical. He walked over to another bed, gripped the ladder, and pulled until his face turned purple. The bed didn't even creak. He tried again, heaving with his whole body, but the iron stayed perfectly in place. He let go, panting and looking at me in disbelief. A bit of force? You're a freaking monster, Yongbin. You're probably just hungry and out of energy, I said with a small smile. If these ladders were that easy to pull off, they would have broken years ago. The bottom was loose now, which made the top easy. I grabbed the frame and yanked it back and forth a few times until the top weld snapped. Just like that, I was holding a 6-foot iron ladder. I swung it around a few times. It felt awkward and unbalanced, but it would have to do for now. Once we got back up to the roof, I planned to knock out the rungs. That would give me 2 solid iron pipes. Take this, I said, handing the ladder to Zhao Kun. I moved to the next bed and repeated the process. Now we had enough material for 4 weapons. Suddenly, a heavy thud echoed from the hallway. Asterisk bang. Bang. Asterisk. We both froze. I immediately activated my truth eye. Through the door, I saw 2 zombies throwing themselves against the wood, clawing frantically at the frame. How did they find us? I frowned. Did they see us come in? I don't know, Zhao Kun whispered, his voice trembling. What do we do now? What else? I said, my voice turning cold. We charge out. If we let them keep banging, every zombie in the building will be at this door. We'll be trapped. Zhao Kun nodded. After everything he'd seen me do, he didn't argue anymore. Deep down, he finally trusted my ability to get us through this. I'll clear the path, I told him. You carry the supplies and stay behind me. Got it. I gripped the iron ladder tight and stepped toward the door. I gave Zhao Kun a look, and he grabbed the handle. He ripped the door open in one motion. Before the 2 zombies could even react, I swung the ladder like a massive club. The impact was brutal. I sent both zombies flying backward into the hallway. Zhao Kun's eyes went wide. He was clearly terrified by the sheer strength I was putting out. I didn't wait. I lunged out of the room. Zhao Kun scrambled to follow. The 2 zombies scrambled back to their feet and lunged again, but I swung the ladder in a wide arc, slamming them back into the floor. The noise was the problem. The echoes triggered a chain reaction. Suddenly, the entire hallway erupted with groans. At least 20 zombies were charging toward us from the darkness. Run! I shouted. We sprinted for the stairs. Behind us, the horde wailed, their footsteps drumming against the concrete like a stampede. We reached the rooftop door in seconds, but I stopped right at the threshold. I'm holding the door, I barked at Zhao Kun. Take the food up there and distribute it. We're right here, Zhao Kun frowned. Why aren't you coming inside? The long ladder is broken, I explained, gesturing to the stairs. It won't hold the iron door against 20 zombies. If they breach the roof, we're dead. The stairwell is narrow. I only have to fight 3 at a time here. I'll hold them off while you guys eat. Just hurry up. Zhao Kun looked at the approaching horde, realized I was right, and disappeared onto the roof. The first wave hit me instantly. I swung the ladder in a low sweep, knocking the lead zombies off their feet. They tumbled backward, taking out the row behind them. But these things didn't know fear. They crawled over their own kind to get to me. I kept swinging, kept slamming them back, but the pressure was building. For every one I knocked down, 2 more pushed forward. On the roof, the others saw the situation. They didn't waste a second. They inhaled the food as fast as they could. Zhao Kun grabbed the ladder I'd just brought up. Shouho grabbed a high stool. Lao He and Chun Hao grabbed the broken pieces of the old wooden ladder. I have to give them credit. They knew how to survive. Despite our friction, no one slacked off when it came to a fight. They rushed to the door to stand beside me. With the 5 of us blocking the narrow entrance, the pressure finally eased. We held the high ground and had the reach. The zombies couldn't break through. Bingo here. Chun Hao pulled half a piece of bread from his pocket. He had taken a portion for himself, but only ate a few bites, saving the rest for me. I smiled and shook my head. You eat it. I'm not hungry. That was just who Chun Hao was. We grew up together, and he always looked out for me. But you haven't eaten since last night, he protested. You've done all the heavy lifting. You have to be starving. I'm really not, I insisted. Since when have I ever been polite with you? Eat it so you have the strength to keep swinging. He didn't argue further and stuffed the bread into his mouth. Yang Bin, we can't do this forever, Zhao Kun shouted over the noise. These things don't get tired. We do. I nodded. Hold them for a minute. I need to fix the ladder. I stepped back onto the roof, grabbed a loose brick, and smashed the rungs off the iron ladder. In seconds, I had 2 thick iron pipes. They weren't solid, but the metal was heavy and durable. I ran back to the door and handed 1 pipe to Chun Hao. Hold the line, I told the group. I'm going to end this. I focused on the lead zombie. I gripped the iron pipe and lunged. I didn't swing it this time. I thrust it forward with everything I had. The pipe whistled through the air and punched straight through the zombie's forehead. The skull cracked like an eggshell. The pipe buried itself deep in the brain. The zombie froze, its limbs went limp, and it slumped to the floor. Holy crap, Chenhao gasped. Bingo, that was insane. The others were stunned. Everyone knew how thick a human skull was. To pierce it with a blunt-ended pipe required terrifying strength. I pulled the pipe out with a wet squelch. Works pretty well. Let me try? Chenhao yelled, energized. He lunged at the next zombie, slamming his pipe into its head. It left a deep dent and drew blood, but it didn't pierce the bone. Just keep them back, I said, stepping forward. I'll do the killing. Chenhao pulled back, looking a bit embarrassed. I didn't care. I went to work. It became a rhythm. Thrust, kill, retract. My movements became fluid, my aim precise. Every strike resulted in a dead zombie. But even as I piled up the bodies, the numbers didn't seem to drop. The noise was drawing more of them out from the dorm rooms on the 7th floor, and more were even coming up from the 6th. The stairwell was becoming a bottleneck of blood and rot. Unlike the open roof, there was nowhere for the bodies to go. Back in the stairwell, the situation was getting worse. Down on the lower floors, the zombies were mindless. They couldn't figure out how to reach the roof, so they usually just stared up at the ceiling. But fighting in the stairwell was different. The noise gave away our position instantly. Now, it wasn't just the zombies from the 7th floor coming for us. The ones from the 6th floor were swarming up the stairs too. I kept killing, but my arms were growing heavy. My muscles burned. Even with my improved physical stats, driving a steel pipe through a human skull over and over required massive force. I wasn't a machine, and this kind of high-intensity combat was draining me dry. Fortunately, the pile of bodies worked in our favor. The corpses started to stack up so high that they blocked the path. The zombies behind them struggled to climb over their fallen comrades. Eventually, the stairwell was completely choked off with rotting flesh. The scratching and snarling stopped. No more were coming. I collapsed onto the floor, my breath coming in ragged gasps. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the pipe. Bingo, are you okay? Chenhao asked, his voice thick with worry. I'm fine, I managed to say, shaking my head. Just exhausted. I need to rest. The stairwell was a slaughterhouse, filled with the stench of death and copper, but strangely, no one threw up this time. Maybe we were just too tired. Or maybe everyone was so hungry that they were forcing themselves to keep down the little bit of food we'd managed to eat. We retreated back to the rooftop. Everyone was spent. Even though the others hadn't been killing, holding that door and keeping the zombies back had taken everything they had. I pulled out my phone to check for news, but the screen stayed black. The battery was dead. Cheap phones really don't last when you need them to. How's he? Check your phone, I said. See if there's any official word. It's past 4 in the afternoon. The world's been ending for hours. The government has to have said something by now. Chenhao pulled out his phone and scrolled. His face lit up for a second, then immediately slumped. What's the look for? I asked. There's an update, Bingo, Chenhao said with a bitter smile. But it's not exactly helpful. The officials are saying the zombies aren't scary. They're telling everyone to find weapons and fight back. They said once they handle their internal affairs, they'll start rescue operations. Basically, they told us not to worry. Spoken like a true official, I chuckled. It was clear now. We couldn't count on a rescue anytime soon. They aren't entirely wrong, though, Zhao Kuan added, looking defeated. If you have a weapon and the guts to use it, a normal person can take on a zombie. It's just a matter of who's brave enough to swing. The world isn't short on desperate people, I said. I bet plenty of people are fighting back by now. You're right, Chenhao said, showing me his screen. The internet is full of videos. People are forming small groups to fight. Even on our campus forum, there are clips of students in other dorm buildings organizing teams. What about our building? Chenhao asked. I laughed. We're looking at them. Right? So much for hoping someone would come save us. Don't be so sure, I said, standing up. There might be people active on the lower floors. We'll rest for an hour. Then, we go down and clear the rest of the 7th floor. We need to see who's still alive, and, more importantly, we need to find food and water. The group nodded, and we all sprawled out on the concrete. We were physically and mentally drained after facing dozens of those monsters. An hour later, I sat up. My arms still ached, but the sharp pain had faded into a dull throb. I could fight. While we rested, Zhao Kuan had been busy. He'd broken down his ladder into two makeshift clubs, one for him and one for Lao Hei. Shoho had taken the steel pipe I'd bent earlier and used a brick to hammer it back into something resembling a straight line. It wasn't perfect, but it would work. "Let's go," I said, leading the way back to the stairwell. The smell hit us like a physical wall. It was the scent of a stagnant butcher shop. We gagged but kept moving, looking down at the blockage. On the other side of the pile of corpses, two zombies were still trying to claw their way up. They were stuck, unable to climb over the wall of their own kind. "How do we get down?" Zhao Kun asked, staring at the blocked stairs. I pointed to the railing. "The stairs are useless. We jump." "Are you serious?" Zhao Kun stammered. "That's a 3-meter drop. We'll break our legs. Plus, those two things are right there waiting to eat us. You're just delivering us as takeout." "Grow a spine," I said, shaking my head. "I'll go first and clear the way. You guys follow." I didn't wait for an answer. I vaulted over the railing with one hand and dropped. I landed in a crouch, absorbing the impact perfectly. My enhanced body wasn't just about strength. My coordination and durability had leveled up too. A 3-meter drop was nothing now. The two zombies hissed, excited by the fresh meat, and lunged. I didn't give them a chance. I thrust my pipe forward, piercing the first one's skull instantly. Before the second one could reach me, I delivered a heavy kick to its chest, sending it sprawling. I stepped up and drove the pipe through its head before it could get back up. The whole thing took seconds. It was fluid, almost easy. Up above, the guys were staring at me with their mouths open. "Incredible," someone whispered. "Stop kissing my ass and get down here," I called up. They hesitated, looking at each other nervously. I sighed and dragged the two fresh corpses over to the landing. "There, use these as cushions. Now move." Shenhao stepped up first. He took a deep breath, climbed over the rail, and jumped. He landed hard on the dead zombies, the bodies soaking up the shock. He stumbled but stayed on his feet. "How's Z's getting braver?" I teased. "Can't let you have all the fun, Bingu," he said, puffing out his chest. Seeing Chunhao survive the jump gave Zhao Kun and the others the push they needed. They gritted their teeth and leaped down one by one, landing on the unfortunate zombies who were now being used as floor mats. The 7th-floor hallway was empty, but I knew the rooms weren't. There were 20 rooms on this floor, 10 on each side of the stairwell. With 4 guys to a room, that meant 80 people lived here. We had killed about 60 zombies so far, and some of those had come from the 6th floor. That meant there were at least 20 or 30 people, dead or alive, still behind these doors. "Let's go." Room by room, I ordered. We headed to the first door on the left. It was wide open. We searched the place top to bottom, but all we found was half a bottle of mineral water and a pack of chewing gum. Guys' dorms aren't like girls' dorms. We don't usually keep a stash of snacks. Finding food was going to be a matter of pure luck. I took a swig of the water and passed it to Chenhao. He took a sip and handed it to Zhao Kun. In this world, there was no room to be picky about germs. Survival was the only thing that mattered. Everyone was parched. When you're that thirsty, you don't care who drank from the bottle before you. Water was more precious than gold at that point. We passed the bottle around, and in seconds, the last drop was gone. I didn't let the empty room go to waste. I walked over to the bunk beds and ripped the steel ladders off the frames. With a little bit of force, I broke them down into 2 sturdy iron pipes. I handed one to Shoho and used the other to replace the one I was carrying. My old pipe was bent and battered from crushing too many skulls. We popped some of the found chewing gum into our mouths to get our saliva flowing and moved slowly toward the second dorm. It was empty. We scavenged what we could and kept moving. The next few rooms were the same, totally deserted. I figured the zombies from these rooms had probably heard the noise in the stairwell earlier and wandered out to join the pile of bodies downstairs. When we reached the 5th room, the door was tightly shut. I activated my truth eye. Through the wood, I saw 3 zombies huddled together, tearing into a mangled corpse. I gave the guys a silent signal. I kicked the door open. The zombies looked up, blood dripping from their muzzles, completely stunned by the sudden intrusion. Before they could even growl, we rushed them. I drove my pipe through the skulls of 2 of them before they could stand. Chenhao and Zhao Kun teamed up on the 3rd one. They didn't have my raw strength to pierce a skull easily, so they went for the throat. They stabbed and hacked at the neck until the head hung by a thread. It was messy but effective. Stabbing a neck was much easier than breaking a forehead. We looted the room and pushed on. Finally, at the 8th room, we found signs of life. Inside were 4 students. All 4 had survived without turning. When they saw us, they looked like they'd just seen their guardian angels. They were ecstatic, thinking they were saved. I looked at them and ruined their mood with one sentence. Grab some weapons. You're coming with us to kill zombies. No way, the leader said, a skinny guy with glasses. The other 3 shook their heads in unison. Are you crazy? Those things eat people. We're staying right here. If we stay quiet, they won't find us. We're waiting for the rescue teams. And what if rescue doesn't come for days? Zhao Kuan asked, frowning. We'll be fine. A guy with curly hair chimed in. We have plenty of food in here. We can last a few days, no problem. My eyes lit up. We had searched half the floor and only found scraps. These guys were sitting on a gold mine. Can we come in for a second? I asked with a fake smile. Standing in the hallway is just going to attract zombies to your door. That spooked them. They scrambled to let us in. As soon as I stepped inside, I saw a table covered in snacks, chips, bread, Coke, Sprite, and even a cake. Chun Hao and the others practically started drooling. Was it someone's birthday? I asked. Yeah, mine, the curly-haired guy said, looking proud. The guys bought all this to celebrate yesterday. Happy birthday, I said. I walked straight to the table, picked up a piece of bread, and started eating. I acted like I owned the place. Happy birthday, man. Chun Hao and the others echoed. They didn't wait for an invite. They swarmed the table, stuffing their faces like they hadn't eaten in years. Thanks, the birthday boy stammered. Then his brain caught up. Wait, hey, that's our food. What are we supposed to eat? Stop, get away from there, the others yelled, rushing forward to save their stash. But it was too late. We were like a pack of starving wolves. We weren't just eating, we were jamming snacks into our pockets. You guys are freaking bandits, the curly-haired guy screamed. Don't be like that, I said, washing down a mouthful of bread with a swig of Sprite. We're just celebrating with you. My birthday is over. Give it back. He was so red in the face I thought his curls might straighten out. Look, I said, my voice dropping an octave. It's already in our stomachs. You want us to throw it up? I walked over to their beds and ripped the ladders off the frames with a loud metallic snap. I tossed the iron pipes at their feet. In this world, these are more important than bread. These might actually keep you alive. The 4 of them stared at the pipes, then back at me. They saw how easily I'd ripped the metal apart and went dead silent. They were terrified. I grabbed 2 more bags of peanuts, shoved them into my pocket, and signaled my group to leave. If you're too scared to fight, keep the door locked, I said over my shoulder. Hope the rescue comes before you starve. Once we were back in the hall, we heard them erupt in hushed, angry whispers, calling us thugs and thieves. We didn't care. We were walking down the hall drinking soda and eating cake. It felt like heaven. Bingo, was that too much? Zhao Kuan asked, looking a bit guilty. Too much, I countered. Do you really think help is coming tomorrow? Even if they do, it'll be weeks. That pile of junk food wouldn't have lasted them. I took their snacks, but I gave them a fighting chance with those pipes. Weapons are worth more than calories right now. Zhao Kuan nodded slowly. He knew I was right. We spent the next 30 minutes clearing the rest of the floor. We found a few more snacks, some bottled water, and even some clean clothes and backpacks to carry our haul. The right side of the hallway was a graveyard. Not a single survivor. Out of 80 people on the 7th floor, only 7 were left alive. Us and the 4 guys in room 708. A 10% survival rate. The reality of the situation settled over us like a heavy shroud. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, we decided to call it a day. We found 2 rooms with sturdy doors that hadn't been kicked in. Zhao Kuan and his 2 friends took one, while Chun Hao and I took the other. I collapsed onto the thin mattress, every muscle in my body aching. I found a stray charging cable, plugged in my phone, and stared at the ceiling. Bingo. Chun Hao whispered from the other bed. Do you think we'll actually survive this? Yeah, I said, my voice firm. We will. He nodded, but I could see the fear in his eyes. Before all this, he thought the apocalypse would be like a movie, exciting and heroic. Now he knew the truth. It was just the constant, suffocating fear of dying at any second. Don't overthink it, I told him. Just focus on the next step. Rest up. In a little while, you and I are heading down to the 6th floor. What are we doing on the 6th floor? Chen Hao asked, his voice low and trembling. Isn't it safer up here? I looked at him, my expression grim. When I was clearing the hallway earlier, I used my ability to scan the floor below. I saw something. A special zombie is roaming the corridor down there. Chen Hao's eyes widened. A special one? Like the one that almost wiped us all out. Exactly, I said. Then why go down there? He whispered, his face pale. Isn't that suicide? I leaned back against the wall. How do you think my strength increased so much, Hao? He blinked, thinking back. I've been wondering about that. You're way stronger than you used to be. Wait, was it that red crystal? Yeah, I nodded. After I ate that crystal, my physical stats shot through the roof. Those things are the key to surviving this apocalypse. We need to get more before anyone else figures it out. So those crystals only come from the special ones? Chen Hao asked. It looks that way, I replied. We've killed dozens of regular zombies and only found one special. They're rare. We can't let this opportunity pass. Chen Hao glanced toward the door of the other room. Should we tell Zhao Kuan and the others? No, I said firmly. We're partners for now, but that's it. As soon as things get competitive, they'll turn on us. I'm not sharing the crystals. We go down alone, and we don't let them see us leave. Got it, he said. When do we move? Rest for a bit. We move soon. In the room next door, Zhao Kuan and his two friends were huddled together, their voices barely audible. Kuan Gu, Shouho whispered. Did you see Yongbin's strength today? It's not natural. Zhao Kuan frowned, his fingers drumming nervously on his knee. I noticed. He's a freak now. If we fought him before all this, the three of us could have taken him. Now, he'd probably beat us to a pulp without breaking a sweat. It has to be that red thing. Lao He growled, his dark face tight with tension. The thing he dug out of that zombie's head. I think you're right, Zhao Kuan said. He ate it, and then he changed. But how did he know it was there? And who has the guts to just eat something they found inside a monster's skull? The whole thing is weird, Shouho added. They both got scratched and didn't turn. And did you see how Yongbin moved today? It was like he knew exactly where every zombie was hiding before we even opened the doors. They're mutants, Lao He muttered. Should we even stay with them? Zhao Kuan stayed silent for a long moment. For now, yes. We're safer with them than without them. But we need to find those crystals for ourselves. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life living under Yongbin's thumb. We're with you, Kuan Gu, Shouho said. We'll find a way. Back in the stairwell, I peered through the crack in the door leading to the 6th floor. My brow furrowed. The fight on the roof had drawn some of them up, but the hallway was still crawling with about a dozen zombies. Right in the middle of the pack was the special one, a tall creature wearing tattered black clothes. Taking them all on at once was a death sentence. I turned to Chen Hao. Hao, the target is the tall one in black, I whispered. Can you use your invisibility to lure him away? Maybe lead him into one of the dorm rooms. Chen Hao peeked out, his throat bobbing as he swallowed hard. I can try. Be careful, I warned. Using your power drains your mental energy. If you start feeling dizzy, get back here immediately. If you pass out, your invisibility will drop, and you'll be lunch. I reached into my pocket and handed him a handful of small stones I'd collected earlier. I got it, Bingo, he said. A second later, his body shimmered and vanished. I watched through my true sight as he crept toward the pack. He stopped about 5 meters away. The zombies continued to shuffle aimlessly, unaware of the predator in their midst. Chen Hao took a breath and tossed a stone into a nearby room. The clatter echoed down the hall. 2 zombies instantly broke away and sprinted into the room to investigate. He repeated the trick, tossing stones into different rooms, successfully peeling away 7 or 8 of them. Finally, the special zombie was exposed. Chen Hao backed up and tossed a stone right at its feet. The creature looked down, its head tilting with a strange, eerie intelligence. It didn't move. Chen Hao didn't give up. He retreated further toward the stairwell, tossing stones one by one. The special zombie finally succumbed to curiosity and followed, but 2 regular zombies stayed glued to its side like bodyguards. Chen Hao looked back toward me, frustrated. He wanted to isolate the big one, but the trio wouldn't separate. I gave him a quick hand signal. Bring them all. I retreated to the landing of the stairs, gripping my steel pipe until my knuckles turned white. I waited, my breath shallow. The moment the first zombie rounded the corner, I lunged. I drove the pipe forward with everything I had. It pierced the regular zombie's skull like a hot needle through wax. It dropped instantly. I didn't aim for the special zombie first. I knew it wouldn't die in one hit, and I couldn't afford to be flanked. The special zombie roared, its speed far greater than the others. It lunged at me. I yanked my pipe back and swung it in a massive horizontal arc. The blow sent the remaining regular zombie tumbling down the stairs, but the special one only staggered back a single step. It lunged again. I thrust the pipe straight at its forehead. Clang. The pipe hit bone and stopped. It made a hole, but the creature's skull was too thick to penetrate fully. Its strength and durability were on a completely different level. I didn't panic. I pulled back and slammed the pipe into its chest, forcing it away. At that moment, the zombie I'd knocked down the stairs scrambled back up, snarling. But before it could reach me, Chunhao shimmered into existence, blocking its path. "I've got this one," he yelled. The hallway erupted into chaos as we both engaged our targets. The hunt was on. In that narrow stairwell, the space was cramped. My long steel pipe felt awkward to swing, clanking against the concrete walls. Luckily, the zombies were predictable. They didn't use tactics. They just lunged forward like mindless animals. I used the length of the pipe to my advantage, keeping them at a distance. Every time the special zombie tried to close the gap, I shoved it back. Then, I aimed for the head. I thrust the pipe forward again and again, striking the same spot on its skull. Crack. Finally, on the 8th strike, the bone gave way. The steel pipe punched through the thick skull and pierced the brain. The special zombie stopped moving instantly, its body sliding down the pipe before collapsing into a heap. On the other side of the landing, Chunhao had already finished his work. He had driven his weapon clean through his target's neck. Suddenly, a chorus of snarls erupted from below. The noise of our fight had alerted the zombies on the 6th floor. They were coming. I didn't hesitate. I reached into the special zombie's shattered skull, my fingers brushing against something hard and cold. I pulled it out, a small, glowing red crystal. "Move," I hissed. We scrambled back up the stairs and slipped into our dorm room just as the first wave of shadows reached the landing. We bolted the door, breathing hard. Chunhao stared at the red crystal in my hand, his eyes wide with wonder. "Bingu, can this thing really make someone that much stronger?" I nodded and pressed the crystal into his palm. "Try it yourself. You'll see." His jaw dropped. "You're giving it to me?" I rolled my eyes. Who else would I give it to? "But Bingu," he stammered, trying to hand it back. "You should take it. If you eat another one, you'll be unstoppable. You could handle all these zombies alone." "What? You want to be a burden?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "You want me to do all the work while you just watch?" "No, that's not it," he whispered, looking down. I feel like it's a waste on me." I sighed and put a hand on his shoulder. "How's he? The world has ended. To survive, you need strength. You're the only person I trust to have my back. We have to grow stronger together. If I keep leveling up and you stay behind, you will become a liability. You don't want that, do you?" He tightened his grip on the crystal. "I don't want to be a burden." "Then eat it," I said. "It's just one crystal. Once you're stronger, the two of us can go out and get as many as we want." Chunhao wasn't the type to overthink once he made up his mind. He wiped the crystal on his shirt, closed his eyes, and swallowed it whole. A moment later, his body stiffened. The energy from the crystal dissolved into his veins, surging through his system. When he opened his eyes, he looked revitalized. He pumped his fist, a grin spreading across his face. "That's incredible," he muttered. "I feel like I could knock out a bull." "Check your mind," I told him. "Do you see anything new?" He closed his eyes again, then snapped them open, staring at me in shock. "Bingu, there's a map of stars in my head. The Big Dipper. It looks exactly like the stars we saw in the sky last night." I nodded. "It's the same for me." "What is this?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Why is there a star map in our brains?" "I'm not sure," I admitted. "But I've been thinking about it. I think we've unlocked some kind of cultivation system. The stars in the map are all dark, but after eating the crystal, a corner of the first star lit up. Our strength doubled. If we light up the whole map, who knows how powerful we'll become. We might even get new abilities. It sounds like a fantasy novel, Chunhao said, shaking his head. Is your invisibility not a fantasy? I countered. He laughed. Point taken. Get some rest, I said, settling onto my bed. Tomorrow, the real fight begins. As night fell, the world outside was consumed by a suffocating fear. In just 24 hours, the bustling streets had turned into a graveyard. The social order was gone. Government offices were silent because the officials had turned into monsters. Cars were piled up in massive wrecks, and the only sound was the muffled sobbing of people hiding in their homes. Humanity was being erased. In the dead of night, the 9 stars of the Big Dipper reappeared in the sky, though the North Star was missing. The mysterious Red Star was gone too. The world became deathly quiet, a silence humans hadn't known for centuries. Under the faint starlight, zombies stood in the streets, tilting their heads back toward the sky. It looked as if the starlight was pulling spiritual energy into their bodies. Deep in the forests and shadows, mutated beasts were doing the same, absorbing the essence of the new world. The next morning, I woke up early and checked my phone. A message notification caught my eye. My heart skipped a beat when I saw the sender. Hu Wenliang. He was alive. Bingo, are you guys still there? The message read. Asterisk, the world went crazy. Old man Lu turned into a zombie. I'm hiding in the bathroom. Asterisk. I think he knows I'm here. I don't know how much longer I can last. If you're alive, stay hidden. Survive. Asterisk. My chest felt heavy. Old man Lu was gone, but Wenliang was still holding on. How Z, wake up. I kicked Chunhao's bed. What? What is it? He mumbled, rubbing his eyes. Liang Z is alive, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Chunhao bolted upright. Really? What about old man Lu? He didn't make it, I said softly. Chunhao's face fell, but he forced a small smile. At least Wenliang is okay. He's trapped in a bathroom, I said, grabbing my gear. We have to go down and get him. We did a quick wash in the sink and changed into clean clothes we'd scavenged. Our old ones were shredded and soaked in dried blood. We grabbed our backpacks and headed to Zhao Kuen's room. I knocked loudly. Shouho opened the door. They were already packed and waiting. What's the plan? Zhao Kuen asked. We're going to the 3rd floor to rescue someone, I said bluntly. Zhao Kuen frowned. To get to the 3rd floor, we have to pass through 4 levels of zombies. If we get pinned between floors, we're dead. It's dangerous, I agreed, looking him in the eye. So, are you coming or not? If you guys aren't going, then Chunhao and I will go alone. Zhao Kuen hesitated for a moment, then slowly shook his head. He told me he was sorry, but he couldn't take that risk. He had to look out for Shouho and Lao He. I nodded. I understood. We were just allies of convenience, and our relationship wasn't deep enough for him to gamble his life for mine. I told them to stay safe, and then I turned to leave. Zhao Kuen called out to our backs, saying he hoped we survived. I just waved my hand without looking back. I told him that even if they died, we wouldn't. We reached the stairwell. Chunhao looked at me, his eyes full of worry. He asked if I was sure about this. I told him the truth. In this world, no one could be sure of anything. But our stats had improved, and we had our abilities. We had to try. Chunhao offered to go down invisible to scout, but I shook my head. His invisibility didn't last long enough yet. If he ran out of energy while surrounded, he was dead. We had to work together. We crept down the stairs. The 6th floor was empty, but when we reached the 5th, we hit a wall. 3 zombies were loitering right in the middle of the stairwell. Killing them would be easy, but the noise would be a dinner bell for every monster in the hallway. If we got pinned between floors, we were finished. I told Chun how to use his invisibility. The plan was simple. Get behind them and use stones to lure them into the hallway. Chunhao vanished and signaled he was moving. He threw a stone toward the corridor. My heart sank when I saw the result. The 3 zombies in the stairwell didn't move an inch. Instead, the noise attracted 2 more zombies from the rooms further down the hall. Chunhao tried again, throwing a stone in the opposite direction. 2 more zombies emerged from the shadows, but the 3 in the stairwell stayed put. We were stuck. Unless Chunhao could get past them and throw a stone deeper into the hallway, they weren't going anywhere. It was like walking a tightrope. The 3 zombies weren't shoulder to shoulder, but they were pacing in a tight circle. One wrong move, one accidental brush against a rotting shoulder, and it was over. I was about to signal Chun how to retreat when he gritted his teeth and kept moving. I gripped my steel pipe, my knuckles turning white. I couldn't stop him now. I just had to be ready to strike the moment things went south. Chun Hao moved with agonizing slowness. He reached the first zombie. He waited for a gap, then stepped past. Then the second. Suddenly, the zombies from the hallway started drifting toward his position. Cold sweat poured down my face. If they kept walking, they would walk right into him. At the last second, Chun Hao tossed a handful of stones back toward the rooms. The zombies paused, turned, and wandered away. One of them had been so close that its face was almost pressed against Chun Hao's invisible chest. He didn't make a sound. Finally, the three in the stairs followed the noise and cleared the way. Chun Hao ducked into a corner and signaled me. I moved fast, staying quiet until I reached him at the fourth-floor landing. I told him he was insane for taking a risk like that. He just grinned and said he had it under control. I told him he almost kissed a zombie, and he went quiet, looking embarrassed. I activated my true eye and looked down toward the third floor. The stairs were clear, but there were stragglers in the fourth-floor hallway. Chun Hao used his trick again, throwing stones to lure them into an open dormitory room. As soon as they were inside, we slipped past. We reached the final flight of stairs leading to the third floor, but I stopped dead. My face went pale. "What is it?" Chun Hao whispered. "A pack," I muttered. "They're in the stairwell. They're eating." Chun Hao didn't understand at first. I told him I recognized the victim. It was the guy from room 312. I could tell by the shape of the leg they were tearing apart. Chun Hao looked at me like I was a psycho for noticing a detail like that. I told him it was just observation. If he ever got eaten, I'd probably recognize his bones, too. We couldn't wait. The zombies were distracted by their meal, but they wouldn't stay that way forever. If more came from the floors above, we'd be trapped in the narrow landing. I told Chun how to follow my lead. We were going to jump. I didn't wait for his reaction. I charged down the steps and launched myself into the air. I planted my boot firmly on the head of one eating zombie, using the impact to vault over the entire group. Chun Hao was right behind me, stepping on another one's shoulder as he flew past. The monsters realized their fresh meat was escaping. They abandoned their meal and let out a collective howl, scrambling to their feet to chase us. We burst onto the third-floor corridor, but I skidded to a halt. My scalp crawled. The entire hallway was a sea of rotting flesh. There were at least 40 of them packed into the narrow space, with 20 blocking the path to the left alone. "Howsy, we're going to have to fight for our lives," I said, my voice heavy. "I'll take the front. You cover the rear." Chun Hao nodded, his expression grimmer than I'd ever seen it. I gripped the steel pipe until my knuckles turned white and charged. A zombie lunged at me almost instantly. I thrust the pipe forward, driving it straight through its skull. But something felt wrong. The resistance was higher. The bone felt denser, tougher than the ones I'd killed yesterday. I didn't have time to overthink it. I kicked the corpse off my weapon, sending it flying into the ones behind it. We pushed forward. Chun Hao was right at my back, mimicking my movements. He wasn't as skilled, but his strength had increased enough that his strikes were lethal. He skewered a zombie's head and kicked it away to clear his path. As we fought through the swarm, my suspicions were confirmed. These things were stronger, faster, and more durable than before. Was it because we were on a lower floor, or were they actually evolving? "Benji, hurry. I can't hold them." Chun Hao's panicked shout broke my concentration. I spun around and my heart dropped. There were more zombies behind us than in front. They were pressing in on Chun Hao, so close he couldn't even swing his pipe anymore. He was using it horizontally to push them back, his teeth grit in desperation. His hands were already bloodied from their claws. "Hold on," I warned. I took down the zombie in front of me and launched myself into the air, delivering a massive kick that sent a cluster of them tumbling back. "Move." I didn't stop to finish them off. I stepped right on their squirming bodies, using them as a bridge to run toward our goal. Chun Hao gave one final shove and scrambled after me. We were mere feet from room 308 when disaster struck. A fallen zombie reached out and grabbed Chun Hao's ankle. Before he could react, it sank its teeth deep into his leg. Chun Hao let out a sharp gasp of agony. "Howsy?" I screamed. I drove my pipe through the monster's head, grabbed Chun Hao by the collar, and used my shoulder to ram through the remaining crowd. We burst into the room and slammed the door, throwing the deadbolt. A guttural growl came from the shadows of the room. We weren't alone. It was Lu Bo, our roommate. Seeing him like that hit me like a physical blow. We had lived together for 3 years. He was our brother. Now he was just another starving animal. He hissed and lunged at us. "I'm sorry, brother," I muttered. I thrust the pipe through his neck. I couldn't bring myself to destroy his face. I wanted him to keep some dignity, even in death. As he slumped to the floor, a heavy silence fell over us, punctuated only by the frantic pounding on the door from the hallway. We didn't have time to mourn. We dragged a heavy bunk bed across the floor, wedging it against the door to reinforce it. "Benji? How's he?" A familiar voice came from the bathroom. Hu Wenliang poked his head out, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Liangzi." We rushed over, and for a moment, the three of us just held on to each other. "I thought I'd never see you guys again," Wenliang said, his eyes red. "You're alive. That's all that matters," Chen Hao breathed. When we let go, Wenliang looked at us in confusion. "The halls are crawling with those things. How did you get back?" "Don't even ask," Chen Hao said, sliding down the wall. He stuck his leg out, showing the jagged, bloody mess where a chunk of his flesh was missing. "We went through hell to get to you." Wenliang's face went pale. "How's your leg?" "I'm so sorry. If I hadn't sent that message, you wouldn't have come. If you turn into one of them, I'll stay with you." "Shut up." Chen Hao rolled his eyes, though he was wincing in pain. "You're not a girl, so don't talk about dying with me. Just find something to wrap this with. It hurts like a bitch." "But, you're going to turn," Wenliang stammered. "I'm fine, you idiot. Stop cursing me." I walked over with a first aid kit I'd found in a locker. I used to work construction jobs, so I always kept alcohol and bandages around. But as I leaned down to treat Chun Hao, I instinctively activated my reality eye. I glanced at Wenliang, and my hands froze. My jaw nearly hit the floor. "No way," I muttered. "That's too much of a coincidence." "What is it, Benji?" Chen Hao asked. "Liangzi, he has an ability. A healing type." "For real?" Chen Hao's face lit up. Wenliang looked back and forth between us, completely lost. "What are you talking about? What ability?" "Liangzi, put your hand on Haozi's wound," I instructed. "Concentrate. Focus on the idea of fixing it." "What? Why?" "Just do it." I grinned. Wenliang knelt down, looking skeptical, and placed his hand over the bloody bite. He closed his eyes and concentrated. Suddenly, a soft white light began to glow from his palm. We watched in absolute silence as the torn flesh began to knit itself back together. Within seconds, the skin was smooth. The wound was gone. "Holy crap," Chun Hao shouted, jumping to his feet. Even I was stunned. Seeing it happen was different than just knowing it was possible. I quickly explained the concept of the apocalypse and the superpowers some people were developing. "So, I'm like a superhero now?" Wenliang asked, staring at his hands. "Something like that," I said. "But tell me, how did you survive in here with Lu Bo? Were you just lucky and in the bathroom when it started?" "No," Wenliang said, his expression turning grave. "I couldn't sleep that night because of your phone ringing, so I stayed up playing games. I was on a losing streak, so I kept playing until 4 in the morning. Just as I was about to quit, I saw a strange red light outside the window. I went to the balcony to see what it was, and you won't believe what I saw. I saw the Big Dipper," Wenliang said, his voice trembling. "And there was another one, a blood-red star right next to it." "How did you know about that?" I asked, testing him. Wenliang's eyes widened. "Is it possible that you saw it too?" Chen Hao laughed. "Yeah, we saw the whole show." "Oh, right," Wenliang said, looking a bit embarrassed. "Well, seeing that sight completely killed any sleepiness I had. I watched until the stars faded and the sun started to peek out. When I finally went back inside the room, I saw Lu Bo. He was shaking uncontrollably on his bed. I kept calling his name, but he wouldn't wake up. He swallowed hard, the memory clearly haunting him. Then, I watched his skin start to rot right in front of my eyes. I was terrified. I tried calling both of you, but the calls wouldn't go through. Suddenly, his eyes snapped open. They were blood red. It looked exactly like a zombie movie. I scrambled into the bathroom and locked the door. I kept dialing the police, but no one answered. Eventually, I saw the news online about the outbreak, and I stayed in there. I didn't dare come out. Man, Shunhao breathed out, impressed. You literally had a front row seat to the end of the world. I didn't say anything, and I was deep in thought. I had an ability, and Shunhao had an ability. Now Wen Liang had one too. The only thing we had in common was that we all saw those 9 stars, and that crimson light. The powers had to be connected to that event. Asterisk bang. 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 Asterisk the zombies outside were still slamming against the door. They were persistent, having locked onto our scent. The bed we used as a barricade was rattling dangerously. Help me with this, I told the guys. We grabbed the other bed in the room and jammed it right behind the first one. With my increased strength and Chunhao's boost, it was easy work. 2 heavy beds wedged against the frame finally silenced the rattling. We all slumped down, finally catching our breath. Brother Ben, Wen Liang asked sheepishly. Do you guys have anything to eat? I haven't had a bite in almost 2 days. He'd been hiding in that bathroom for over 24 hours without food or sleep. He looked like he was about to collapse. Yeah, we got you, I said. I pulled off my backpack and zipped it open. It was stuffed with snacks and bottled water we'd scavenged earlier. Wen Liang's jaw dropped. Holy crap, did you guys rob a grocery store? How is there so much stuff? Something like that, I replied. Eat up. He didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed a pack of bread and a bottle of water, tearing into them like a starving animal. Watching him bolt down the food, I couldn't help but smile. Wen Liang's healing ability was a massive win for us. In this new world, getting hurt was inevitable. We weren't doctors. A simple infection or a deep cut could be a death sentence. But with him around, his power was nothing short of a miracle. After a few minutes, Wen Liang finished his meal and leaned back with a satisfied groan. Man, it feels good to have a full stomach. Tell me about it, Chunhao said proudly. Finding food isn't easy anymore. We had to clear an entire floor just to get what's in that bag. You guys are legends, Wen Liang said, giving us a thumbs up. Then his face clouded over. So, Brother Ben, what's the plan? Those things are still blocking the door. We're trapped. Don't worry, I said. They can't get in. We'll rest for now. Eventually, some of them will wander off. When the numbers drop, we'll make our move. Hey, how's he? Wen Liang said, looking at Chunhao's shredded sleeves. Your arms look pretty bad. Let me fix the rest of those wounds. Chunhao rolled up his sleeves, revealing several nasty gashes. Please, it's stinging like crazy. Wen Liang shook his head. You two came in together, yet Brother Ben is fine and you're covered in scratches. What gives? I can't compare myself to him, Chunhao grumbled. If I were as strong as him, I'd be the one in charge. But seriously, Liangzi, this power of yours is incredible. I don't have to worry about getting hurt ever again. As Chunhao watched his skin knit back together, Wen Liang suddenly turned pale. He swayed on his feet and nearly hit the floor, catching himself on the edge of a desk just in time. Whoa, you okay? Chunhao asked, startled. I don't know. I just feel really dizzy. Like all my strength is gone. It's the ability, I explained. Using it drains you. You need to rest. Wait, using it actually does that? Wen Liang muttered. I thought I was in better shape than that. Guess I'm not very durable yet. You're not persistent enough, Liangzi, Chunhao teased. The consumption is huge in the beginning, I added. But as you get stronger, you'll be able to use it longer. It's the same for all of us. Chunhao nodded, understanding. All right, everyone get some sleep, I ordered. Especially you, Liangzi. You haven't slept in 2 days. Your eyes are bloodshot. We'll wake you up if anything happens. But the zombies. The beds will hold, I assured him. Think of the door slamming as a white noise machine. It'll rock you to sleep. Wen Liang chuckled weakly, climbed onto the bed, and was out cold within seconds. Meanwhile, up on the 7th floor, things were getting tense. Kuinji, do you think Yang Bin and his friend made it? Shouho asked, peering down the stairwell. I don't know, Zhao Kun replied, his voice tight. But Yang Bin is smart. I bet he's still kicking. We need to hit the 6th floor for food soon, Shouho muttered. What we have left will only last until tomorrow. If we don't move, we starve. We can't do it alone, Zhao Kun said. We need to recruit those 4 guys from room 708. Those cowards? They won't come out. They will, Zhao Kun smirked. They're running out of food too. When the hunger hits, they'll be begging to join us. It was the second day of the apocalypse. Across the campus, shadows moved behind dormitory windows. Hunger was starting to win over fear. People were being forced to take risks, venturing out into the halls to find anything to eat. Most of them didn't make it. They weren't survivors. They were just delivery drivers bringing a fresh meal to the monsters waiting in the dark. Suddenly, around noon, the school's loudspeaker system crackled to life. The blaring noise immediately drew the attention of every zombie on campus. They were incredibly sensitive to sound. Like a tide, the undead began to surge toward the source of the noise. A voice came over the speakers. It was one of the school directors. He was telling anyone still alive to make their way to the main canteen. There were 4 canteens on campus, but everyone knew the main one. It was the massive hall near the dorms that could seat 3,000 people. The director probably figured the zombies couldn't understand human speech, so he felt safe broadcasting the plan. For the students hiding in their rooms, it was a spark of hope. The school hadn't abandoned them. But even though the main canteen was the closest one to the dorms, the distance was still a death trap. The school's online forum exploded with activity. Anyone still alive in Building 16? Let's group up and head to the canteen together. Building 12 here. I started a group chat. Let's stay safe. In our building, Building 21, a thread appeared as well. How many are left in Building 21? Let's get a head count and move as a unit. The comments poured in. After a quick tally, the survivors in our entire building totaled only 53 people. I didn't post, and neither did my friends, so we weren't even counted. That averaged out to only 7 or 8 people per floor. A heavy silence settled over the forum as the reality of the numbers sank in. Just then, someone posted a new comment. Wait, there's a problem with our building. The forum was buzzing with a new development. Someone claimed that the zombies on the 7th floor had already been cleared out. They said a group had killed every single one of them and suggested these heroes should lead the rest of us to the canteen. I scrolled through the comments, watching the mood shift instantly. People were shocked. They couldn't believe anyone was that brave. But then, the tone turned sour. Someone posted that the guys on the 7th floor were actually bad people who had stolen food from their fellow students. The moral police came out in full force. People who hadn't dared to step foot outside their rooms were suddenly experts on ethics. They called us despicable. They acted like we'd committed some unforgivable crime against humanity just for taking a few snacks. Chun Hao was sitting next to me, staring at his phone with a look of pure frustration. He muttered about how annoying it was to be labeled a villain over a few pieces of cake. I told him not to let it get to him. These people were just sour because they didn't have what we had. If they were in our position, they'd be 10 times worse. Chun Hao nodded, but he looked ready to move. He asked if we should head out since the zombie count outside seemed to have dropped. I told him to wait. In a situation like this, being part of a massive, panicked crowd isn't always a good thing. I wanted to see how the chaos played out first. The forum was now fixated on finding the strong guys from the 7th floor. Someone identified them as Zhao Kuan, Lao He, and Shou Ho from room 716. They also mentioned 2 others they didn't recognize, which were me and Chun Hao. People started tagging Zhao Kuan, demanding he step up and lead them to safety. Back in room 716, things were getting heated. Zhao Kuan and his buddies were fuming. One minute the forum was calling them criminals, and the next, they were expected to be bodyguards? Shou Ho was disgusted by the hypocrisy. Lao He thought there might be strength in numbers, but Zhao Kuan was hesitant. He knew a bigger group meant a bigger target. What really annoyed Zhao Kuan was that nobody had identified me yet. I was the one who had actually forced the issue, yet they were the ones taking all the heat online. Meanwhile, the school's plan was actually working. The loud broadcasts from the speakers were drawing the zombies away from the dorms. Seeing an opening, students from the buildings closest to the canteen started making their move. They were armed with whatever they could find: mops, bed slats, chairs, and the occasional kitchen knife. It was a gamble. Some groups made it through by sheer numbers, swarming the few zombies left behind. Others weren't so lucky. The zombies weren't deaf, but they weren't blind either. If they saw fresh meat walking across the quad, they forgot about the music and lunged. The forum was a mess of success stories and horror reports. People were desperate. Hunger was a stronger motivator than fear now. Back on our building's thread, the insults toward Zhao Kun were getting nasty. Since he hadn't replied, people were calling him a coward and a thief. They claimed he probably hadn't even killed any zombies, and that the ones on the 7th floor must have just jumped off the balcony themselves. That was the breaking point for Lao He. He couldn't take the insults anymore. He stood up, declaring he was going to room 708 to crack some heads. He was tired of being the scapegoat for my actions. Zhao Kun didn't stop him. He was just as fed up. They stormed over to room 708 and pounded on the door. The students inside, including the guy with the permed hair, were terrified. Zhao Kun told them they wanted a guide to the canteen, so they were getting one. The door opened, and for a few minutes, all you could hear were screams and the sound of a one-sided fight. Zhao Kun's group had actually fought zombies. These guys were just kids hiding under blankets. It wasn't even close. A few minutes later, Zhao Kun and his friends walked out, looking much more relaxed. Behind them, 4 students lay on the floor, bruised and shaking. Zhao Kun decided it was time to leave for the canteen. He didn't care about the rest of the building. He was looking out for himself. As soon as they left, the guys they had just beaten up scrambled to their feet. Despite the bruises, they knew following Zhao Kun was their best shot at survival. They weren't the only ones. As word spread on the forum that the vanguards were moving, doors all over Building 21 began to creak open. I sat in room 308, watching the updates. I shook my head. Zhao Kun had lost his cool. He was leading a parade of targets straight into the open. Still, he had the weapons and the experience. I watched the shadows moving outside, wondering how many of them would actually make it to the first meal of their new lives. If they just focused on getting to the canteen themselves, they'd probably make it, Chun Hao said, leaning against the wall of our dorm. But with that massive crowd following them, that's a different story. I nodded. He was right. Too many people makes for a big target. But they're all classmates. I guess Zhao Kun figured if he's going anyway, he might as well lead them. Otherwise, they'd just starve to death in their rooms. You'd better drop that kind of thinking, I told him firmly. My voice was cold. This is the end of the world. We look out for our friends and family. That's it. We can't save everyone. A single moment of misplaced mercy will get you killed. Chun Hao went quiet for a second, then nodded. I get it. So when do we move? I looked over at Hu Wanliang, who was still fast asleep. We still have enough food. We'll stay here tonight and see how things look tomorrow. The canteen isn't necessarily a paradise anyway. Too many people, and the rice won't last forever. I'm with you, Chun Hao agreed. While we stayed put, Zhao Kun and his group were already making their move. They headed downstairs, running into a few stray zombies along the way. They handled them easily, their experience with the steel pipes paying off. When they hit the first floor and saw the massive crowd trailing behind them, Zhao Kun scowled. He didn't like it, but he didn't stop them. He just kept walking. They moved through the dorm complex and reached a green belt. Nearby, a group of zombies was huddled around a hidden outdoor speaker, looking confused. They could hear a human voice coming from the ground, but couldn't see anyone to bite. Zhao Kun signaled for silence and tried to circle around them. The crowd followed, everyone holding their breath. But when you have 50 people moving together, something always goes wrong. Someone stepped on the heel of the person in front of them. One guy tripped, then another, and suddenly it was a domino effect of bodies hitting the pavement. Damn it, Zhao Kun hissed. It was too late. A dozen pairs of blood-red eyes snapped toward them. The zombies let out a collective growl and charged. Panic hit the crowd instantly. Some people started running blindly. Stop! Nobody move! Zhao Kun roared, brandishing his pipe. Anyone who runs, I'll kill you myself. He, Shouho, and Lao He didn't flinch. They stepped forward, pipes ready. The crowd was terrified, but seeing Zhao Kun stand his ground gave them a flicker of hope. They had 50 people against a dozen monsters. The math was on their side. The zombies slammed into them. Zhao Kun and his 2 friends moved with precision, driving their steel pipes through the necks and skulls of the lead attackers. They knew exactly where to hit now. The rest of the students were a mess. Their weapons were a joke. Some had sticks, some had kitchen knives, and some were even worse. A few idiots were actually carrying laptop bags and backpacks instead of weapons. When the zombies reached them, some fought back, but others just stood there with trembling legs. They were brave behind a keyboard, But face to face with a corpse, they crumbled. Thanks to Zhao Kuen's trio and the sheer number of people, they eventually took down all the zombies. But it wasn't a clean victory. 6 students were limping or clutching their arms, blood soaking through their clothes. They'd been bitten. Zhao Kun looked at the wounds and didn't hesitate. Either leave on your own, or I kill you right now. No, please, one of them wailed. There has to be a way. I won't turn. Don't give up on us, another begged. The crowd, which had been standing shoulder to shoulder with them seconds ago, scrambled back like they were looking at a plague. Just go, someone muttered. Do it with some dignity. You can't do this. We're a team, the bitten students screamed. No one moved to help. Within minutes, the skin on their faces began to rot. Their eyes turned a milky, violent red. They started to groan in pain. Before they could fully turn, Zhao Kun and his friends moved. 3 steel pipes whistled through the air, piercing throats and ending it. The crowd watched in horrified silence. They were terrified of the zombies, but they were becoming just as terrified of Zhao Kun. If you want to make it to the canteen, pay attention, Zhao Kun spat. If that happens again because you're being stupid, I'll finish you myself. They kept moving. For a while, it was quiet. They picked off a few stragglers without much trouble. But as they neared the canteen, the nightmare truly began. A massive horde, at least 100 zombies, was chasing another group of survivors right toward them. Zhao Kun's face went pale. Retreat, he yelled. But the other group saw them and screamed for help, running straight at Zhao Kun like he was a life raft. Help us. There are too many of them. Crap, Zhao Kun cursed. He looked at Lao He and Shou Ho. Run. We can't handle this. The 3 of them bolted. The crowd behind them followed in a frantic, screaming mess. Where do we go, Kun go? They're gaining on us. Lao He yelled. The library. Go. They veered toward the library, smashing through a few stray zombies in their path. When they reached the heavy doors, Zhao Kun grabbed the handle. It was locked. Break it down. Zhao Kun slammed his pipe against the lock. Lao He and Shou Ho joined in, metal clanging against metal. Behind them, the screams were getting closer. The horde had reached the back of their group. Hurry up, people screamed, tears streaming down their faces. Shut up and help us hit it. Zhao Kun barked. With a final, desperate collective heave, the lock snapped. Zhao Kun flung the doors open, and the students poured inside, trampling each other to get through the gap. As the last few people tried to scramble in, zombies were already grabbing at their clothes. Zhao Kun didn't wait. He slammed the heavy doors shut, cutting off the screams of those still outside. Move the tables. Block the door, he commanded. The survivors, trembling and broken, dragged heavy furniture against the entrance. Outside, the banging started. Open up, please. We're still out here. You're killing us. Open the door. The people inside looked at each other. Some looked guilty, but no one moved a finger. In the choice between their lives and the people outside, they chose themselves. Slowly, the scratching and screaming outside faded away into a sickening silence. There were only 30-odd people left. They had lost 20 lives in a single trip, and they hadn't even reached the canteen. They were trapped in a library with no food and no way out. Looking around at the empty bookshelves, the realization hit them. They were in a worse position than when they started. I could have told them that. Survival isn't about how many people you have. It's about how many you're willing to leave behind. I never expected it to end like this. We were safe on the roof, but below us, the library had become a tomb. Kunji, what do we do now? Shou Ho whispered, his voice trembling. I don't know, Zhao Kun replied, staring blankly at the barricaded door. We wait. We see if the zombies leave. Damn our luck. It's not about luck, Lao He grumbled. It's about us. We're the problem. Zhao Kun looked at him sharply. Why say that? Because if Yang Bin were here, Lao He muttered, he never would have let these extra people follow us. We're carrying dead weight. Back at Building 308, the world felt much quieter. I looked out the window at the empty courtyard. The chaos had shifted elsewhere. Looks like they're all gone, I said. Yeah. Chunhao agreed, standing beside me. I bet we're the only ones left in this entire dorm building. Wake up, Wen Liang, I said, grabbing my steel pipe. We're going scavenging. Chunhao looked at me, confused. Benji, I thought you wanted to stay another day just to get some rest. Was the comfortable bed just an excuse? I laughed. Not entirely. But think about it. Now that the main horde has followed that crowd, the surrounding rooms are ripe for the picking. Those guys probably grabbed all the food, but we're not looking for snacks this time. Then what are we looking for? Daily essentials, I explained. Clothes, power banks, lighters. Things that make survival possible in the long run. Chunhao nodded and shook Hu and Liang awake. We moved the beds blocking our door and stepped out into the hallway. It was eerie. The zombies were gone, but the school radio was still blasting high-energy pop music. It was a beacon for the undead, though I knew it wouldn't last long. Eventually, the zombies would tear those speakers off the walls, and then they'd start wandering aimlessly again. We spent 2 hours systematically clearing floors 1 through 6. Just as I suspected, food was scarce, but we filled a backpack with supplies. Drop these back at the room, I commanded. Then we're heading back out. Where to now? Hu and Liang asked. To find special zombies, I said. Chunhao's eyes lit up. Hu and Liang looked lost, but he didn't argue. He just followed. I handed Wen Liang a sharpened steel pipe of his own. Most people were hiding from the monsters. We were the only ones actively hunting them. Even if others knew about the crystals inside a zombie's head, they'd have a hard time finding the right ones. Special zombies look exactly like the common ones. You usually don't know they're special until they're ripping your throat out with superior strength. But I had an advantage, the eye of truth. We left the dorm and skirted around a large group of zombies huddled under a loudspeaker. I led us through the shadows, using my ability to spot threats before they spotted us. We bypassed several groups, only killing a few stragglers that blocked our path. Finally, as we passed a small, thick grove of trees, I froze. A grin spread across my face. Found one. Really? Chunhao whispered, gripping his pipe. Yeah, I chuckled. But it's a bit. PG-13. What do you mean? Small grove of trees. Isolated. A guy and a girl. You do the math. Hu and Liang's eyes went wide. No way. They're that bold. Don't be so surprised, Chunhao joked. Back when I was with Shirya. Stop, I cut him off. Don't start with your glory days again. Your Shirya is probably with someone else by now. I pointed toward the trees. 2 zombies. The female is the special one. The male is ordinary. I'll take the girl, you take the guy. Wen Liang, stay back. Make it quick before we attract a crowd. We crept into the dense foliage. Without my eye of truth, we never would have seen them. When we finally broke through the brush, Chunhao and Hu and Liang stopped dead in their tracks. Holy crap, Chunhao muttered. They really were in the middle of it. Must have turned right when things were getting heated, Hu and Liang added, staring. Focus, I hissed. They're coming. The 2 zombies noticed us and lunged. But there was a problem. Their pants were still tangled around their ankles. They took 2 steps and face-planted into the dirt. We all stood there for a second, a cold sweat breaking out on our foreheads. Now I know why they didn't follow the music, Chunhao remarked. They literally couldn't run. The zombies scrambled to get up, snarling, only to trip over their own clothes again. The female zombie's shirt was pushed up, her chest hitting the ground with every clumsy fall. Man, does that hurt? Hu and Liang asked. Doubt it, Chunhao said, sounding like an expert. They're dead, remember? Enough talk, I said. Finish them. We moved in. It was the easiest kill we'd ever made. Chunhao took out the male with a single thrust. I had to stab the female 7 or 8 times before she finally stopped moving. Her skin was incredibly tough, thicker than the special zombies I'd killed yesterday. It worried me. Was she stronger because she was special, or were they actually evolving? If the zombies were getting stronger by the hour, our window of safety was closing fast. What a waste, Hu and Liang sighed, looking at the female corpse. Hey, if you want to lose your virginity that badly, she's still warm, I joked. I'm not a freak, he snapped. And for the last time, I am not a virgin. Right? You also said you've never even held a girl's hand. I reached into the zombie's skull and pulled out a glowing red crystal. Is that the energy crystal? Hu and Liang asked, leaning in. Yeah, here. I tossed it to him. Eat it. Me? He looked shocked. Who else? You're the weakest one here. I don't plan on carrying a liability forever. When Liang realized I was serious, he gave us a grateful look, wiped the crystal clean, closed his eyes, and swallowed it whole. A moment later, the 3 of us set off again, stronger and hungrier for the next hunt. Outside, the music was fading. More speakers were being destroyed. The campus was becoming a graveyard. Some students had made it to the canteen. Others were still barricaded in their rooms, clutching their last scraps of food. But at the canteen, the situation wasn't much better. The heavy doors were locked tight, and every window was covered in thick layers of newspaper, hiding the terrified faces within from the horrors outside. I couldn't see what was happening inside the canteen from the outside, but the noise told me everything. It was a madhouse. Thousands of people were packed together, screaming and crying, sounding more like a chaotic marketplace than a school building. The school leaders were trying to maintain order, but the students were on the verge of a total mental breakdown. They weren't listening to anyone. The principal looked at the latest statistics, his face turning pale. There were over 30,000 students and staff at this school. Now, less than 2,000 had made it to the canteen. He couldn't wrap his head around it. He asked if there were any other survivors out there, but the director just sighed. The canteen was surrounded by zombies. Even if people were still alive, they weren't getting in. The principal took a deep breath and gave the order to serve food. Everyone was starving. As soon as the dishes appeared at the service windows, the crying stopped instantly. It was replaced by a violent surge. Students scrambled and pushed, desperate to reach the front. The principal grabbed a megaphone, shouting for them to form a line, but they were beyond reason. Some even tried to climb over the counters to grab the food themselves. He had no choice but to tell the staff to take the food away. That finally snapped them out of it. Once they realized they wouldn't get a bite unless they behaved, they finally formed a line. When the first student reached the window, she was shaking with excitement. She started pointing at everything, demanding huge portions of rice and meat. The cafeteria lady didn't listen. She plopped one small scoop of rice and one scoop of potatoes onto the plate and moved to the next person. The girl was stunned. She started yelling that she had money on her card, that she could pay for a whole day's worth of food. The entire room erupted in anger again. They wanted more. The principal raised the megaphone one more time. He told them to be quiet. He explained that we were living through the darkest moment in human history. Food was scarce. No one knew when rescue would arrive. If they didn't ration now, they would be dead in days. The logic finally sank in. The room went quiet. Students sat down and began to wolf down their meager portions. I bet that cafeteria food had never tasted so good to them. Some even licked their plates clean, still feeling the hollow ache of hunger. The principal pulled the head cook aside and asked how long the supplies would last. The cook looked grim. If they were careful, the rice would last maybe 7 or 8 days. But the vegetables were fresh and would rot within 3 or 4. The principal frowned. He couldn't imagine what would happen if the food ran out before help arrived. He told the cook to reduce the portions even further. They had to stretch the time. The cook nodded, already planning to turn the meals into thin porridge. Meanwhile, over at the library, 30 survivors were slumped on the floor, drained of energy. They had escaped the zombies, but now they were facing starvation. There was nothing to eat in a library. Many of them were already regretting leaving their dorms. Suddenly, the sound of crinkling plastic cut through the silence. Every head snapped toward a guy with curly hair. He had just opened a bag of instant noodles. The atmosphere changed instantly. The eyes surrounding him were predatory. Someone asked him to share, claiming they were all classmates and should help each other. They started closing in. The guy was terrified. He stammered that it was his only bag. Before he could finish the sentence, the crowd pounced. They snatched the noodles and tore his backpack away, searching his clothes and pockets until he had nothing left. He screamed at them, but they didn't care. The same people who had been preaching about morality minutes ago were now acting like starving wolves. 3 other students from dorm 708 tried to hide their own snacks, but they were too slow. The mob saw the movement and descended on them next. They were stripped clean in seconds. Lao Hei and Shou Ho watched the scene from a distance, feeling a dark sense of satisfaction. They couldn't believe those guys actually had food hidden away. Zhao Kuan didn't join the scramble, but he didn't stop it either. He just sighed at the reality of human nature and pulled a piece of bread from his own bag. As soon as the mob saw him eating, they started to drift his way. Zhao Kuan didn't hesitate. He grabbed his blood-stained steel pipe and gave them a cold, murderous stare. He told them to take one more step and see what happened. The crowd froze. The sight of the dried blood on that metal pipe suppressed their hunger. They knew he was a man who would actually kill. He finished his bread right in front of them, and no one dared to move. On the other side of campus, my group and I were back on the hunt. The school was crawling with the undead, but I was looking for something specific. I eventually spotted a pack of about 20 zombies wandering near a lawn. The radio there had been smashed, but they were still lingering. I pointed toward the group. One of them was a special zombie. Chun Hao frowned, noting that 20 was a large number, and there were other groups nearby that might be drawn to the noise. I told him we had to do it. Special zombies were too valuable to pass up. I asked Chun Hao to see if he could lure some of them away. He activated his invisibility and crept toward them, tossing stones to create a distraction. It had worked in the dorms, but out here, the stones just thudded silently into the thick grass. The zombies didn't even turn their heads. After several failed attempts, he had to retreat. We couldn't split them up. Chun Hao looked at me with an embarrassed shrug. It seemed like we had no choice but to go in loud and fight them head-on. I sighed, feeling the weight of the situation. I told him not to rush. I wanted to see if I could find a better way, but before I could speak, Chun Hao cut in. He told me he wanted to try something he called his way of assassination. I was confused. I asked him what the hell that was supposed to be. He just grinned and told me to give him a few minutes to rest and recover his mental energy. I nodded, curious to see what he had planned. 10 minutes later, Chun Hao stood up. He told us to stay back and wait for his signal. I asked him if he was sure about this, telling him not to push his luck if it got dangerous. He promised me he'd already simulated the move 1,000 times in his head. He activated his invisibility and vanished. I watched through my truth eyes as he crept toward the pack of zombies. He didn't stop this time. He walked right up to a stray zombie and drove his steel pipe through its skull in one fluid motion. The zombie dropped instantly, but as soon as he attacked, his body flickered back into view. The surrounding undead froze for a split second before letting out a collective roar and lunging at him. Chun Hao was ready. He didn't stay to fight. He bolted back toward the grass, and after a few steps, his figure vanished again. Through my special vision, I saw him moving on his tiptoes, barely making a sound on the thick lawn. He didn't run in a straight line. He looped around to the other side to avoid the charging crowd. The zombies reached the spot where he had been and stopped, looking completely dazed. Their rotting brains couldn't comprehend how a person could just disappear. As they started to wander aimlessly again, Chun Hao struck from the shadows once more. He appeared behind another zombie, cracked its head open, and vanished before the others could even turn around. He was playing them like a fiddle. I was genuinely impressed. This way of assassination was actually effective. Pu Wenliang stood beside me, his eyes wide with awe. He couldn't see the invisible Chun Hao, so to him, it looked like a ghost was teleporting around the field, dropping zombies one by one. After taking down 9 zombies, Chun Hao finally retreated. He stumbled back to our hiding spot, his face pale and sweating. He deactivated his invisibility and collapsed onto the grass, breathing hard. He told us that the technique drained his mental energy way too fast. I patted his shoulder and told him he'd done enough. He had cleared out nearly half of them on his own. He warned us that he wouldn't be able to use his powers again for at least half an hour. I told him it was fine. There were only 13 left. Once he caught his breath, we would finish them the old-fashioned way. We waited a few minutes until he could stand. Then the 3 of us gripped our steel pipes and charged. The zombies spotted us immediately and rushed forward, eager for a meal. We met them head-on. In the first clash, we dropped 3 of them instantly. The remaining 10 swarmed in, but we didn't back down. We swung our pipes in wide arcs, using our superior strength to knock the front line back. Among the chaos, I spotted my target. One zombie had only stumbled back 2 steps while the others were sent flying. That was the special one. I shouted to the guys to handle the rest while I took the lead. The open grass gave me plenty of room to move. I thrust, swung, and smashed my pipe against the special zombie with everything I had. It didn't take long before I drove the metal tip through its temple. It slumped to the ground, dead. By the time I finished, Chun Hao and Hu Wenliang had already cleaned up the rest. We didn't stick around to celebrate. I grabbed the crystal from the special zombie's head, and we sprinted away to find a safer spot. Once we were hidden, I pulled out the glowing crystal. Before I could offer it to them, Chun Hao told me to just eat it. Hu Wenliang agreed, saying they wanted to see what kind of change it would bring. I didn't argue. I cleaned it off and swallowed it. I felt that familiar rush of energy surging through my veins, but as the feeling faded, I frowned. Something was wrong. The guys asked me if it didn't work. I told them it worked, but not as well as I'd hoped. I expected the second point of the star in my mind to light up, but it remained dim. My strength had increased, but the jump wasn't nearly as massive as the first time. I realized then that one crystal wouldn't be enough anymore. To reach the next level, I was going to need a lot more. Hu Wenliang just shrugged and smiled. He said the school was huge and full of zombies, so finding more wouldn't be a problem. He was right. We stood up, gripped our weapons, and headed back out into the silence of the campus. The hunt wasn't over yet.